First agenda item, agenda approval, and I proposed a late item addition under old business, because it's in process for discussion only. ARPA funds balance and status, as it will relate to the other old business as well.
And is that the only one, Judge?
That's the only one I had.
I move to approve the agenda with the late item addition into old business.
Second.
Have a motion to approve the agenda, and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And next item is minutes approval
I
from
move,
our January 4th county court meeting.
right. I move to approve the Harney County Court meeting minutes of January 4th, 2023. And I again want to just thank our minutes taker for the good job she does.
I'll second.
Motion to approve and January 4th county court, Harney County Court minutes have been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Yes. Okay, next on the list is old business from the
Opportunity for
Harney County Opportunity Team from the December last county court meeting in December, whatever that date was.
excuse me, Judge, did you already call for public comment if there was any?
Oh. Oh, I skipped it. All right, go back up. Any
That's our
public
favorite
comment?
one.
Trying to
That's
keep
right,
Rick
keep me
quiet.
That's our favorite one.
Opportunity for public comment. Hearing none, we shall move to old business. First item under old business is Harney County Opportunity Team. From Patty McNeil and Ramona Hoffman. I see Ramona's present.
Hi.
And like I said, that was the last meeting in December. I don't know what the exact date was, the 23rd of December. Wherein the Opportunity Team had requested some assistance, financial assistance. And refresh my memory, but I think the number that you had requested was 25,000.
Correct.
Is that right? Discussion?
That leads into our other discussion.
Yeah. So we don't, it's my understanding from my research that the county used to have a line item wherein they had funds set aside for assisting outside agencies, partner agencies and whatnot. We don't have that. It hasn't been in place since the budget issues in 2019. So the only other fund that was proposed that I know of where we have funds available was from the American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funds. In researching that, I'll start off with the guidance from NACO, National Association of Counties. In their June 2022 pamphlet discusses who's available for assistance. Is the Opportunity Team a nonprofit?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so there's guidance for small business and there's guidance for nonprofits. Impact for highlighted is decreased revenues, financial insecurity, increased cost, capacity to weather financial hardship, challenges covering payroll, rent, or mortgages. Eligible uses include loans or grants to mitigate financial hardship, or technical or in-kind assistance or other services. So that would take us to the types of eligibility types of assistance that we could offer to the team is loans or grants. That I know of, ARPA funds have not been used for any other outside agency like that, other than the Park and Rec, and the Predator, the
The kids club also.
Kids Club
receives
and the Predator Control program. We don't have that also that I'm aware of any kind of a grant program that's identified in how we would determine those grants or the guidelines or rules for a grant.
We have a small beautification, no interest loan program, and that's all I'm aware of for community stuff.
So, as far as an outside entity, non-governmental entity, I don't know if we have any avenue to be able to use those funds for that.
My concern is not helping. My concern is our ARPA funds started out at 1.4 million. And at that time, the budget board and we all said, we got to be careful. Don't just help. And this is supposed to be for a big thing to make a big impact. And at that time, the broadband for the county, including the rural areas, was the intent. But over time, we kept helping out. And now we're down to what, 600,000 or something. So, and that's not very much for what we've got to do in broadband. So I was hoping that the judge in reviewing the budget might find pockets in our budget besides that to use to help you, if not the full amount, at least some, but also the fact that this will open the door to many requests that we have not been entertaining for years since the budget crisis, because we just don't have much wiggle room in our budget. So those are my concerns. But I'd like to hear what you all think. I mean, I'll be briefing later on the broadband and the types of monies we're going to be talking about, we're going to need. So
There was an opportunity for businesses to apply to those ARPA funds earlier.
lots of.
Was your entity one of those that
We
received
did, yeah, we
funds
did
from
get
that?
some funds, yeah, and it helped
Okay.
with our technology upgrades. Helped
Okay.
with that, we used it on that, because those were really needed at the time for Zoom. And we had a lot of meetings there and.
With your
Yeah.
audio visual
Mhm.
equipment.
And so your entity did receive some at
Yeah,
that
we
point.
did.
Okay.
I also, the copy of an email that was provided, I believe, during that meeting, identified the revenue for the years 2017 through 2022. So I looked at that, and the revenues in 17 and 18 were both 9,823, 9,466 respectively. And 2019 was a big boost of $12,256. Then during the years most affected by COVID, 2020 and 2021, revenues went down to $7,852, $6,719 respectively. So I looked at those numbers, and based on what your normal revenue was prior to the two most affected COVID years, there's really only about a $3,000 difference in your revenues. And so therefore, I'm also a little hesitant on the $25,000 request.
Did you give us anything?
Well,
And I have a question too, does that money have to be used by a certain time? Or that you have in that fund have to be used by a certain time, or does it carry over?
I can't remember if it's a few years out or if we just have it.
We
now.
have to have it allocated by 2024 and used by 2026.
Okay.
so having, putting all that together, and deciding on the amount, that if we were gonna assist the opportunity team, I can go back into the budget and try and look for another line. I mean, table this again and go
I
back
can
in.
help you some, but probably we'll have to hear what the judge
Well,
is.
and generally with the ARPA funds, some of the guidance that was given from NACO was the entities can come and say, here's how much revenue I lost. And as you are looking at that number, it is more around the $3,000 mark. And that is something that entities were able to say, I had this much revenue loss during COVID. Would you be able to help us out with our revenue loss?
So if you take what I did is I took the highest in those first 2 years, which was $9,823. And then it dropped down a little bit, about $400 is $350 roughly in 2018 for your regular revenue. And then 2020, it was 7,852 and 6,719. So I took the 6,719 and subtracted from your higher amount in 2017, coming up with a difference of $33,100. For the 2 years, then, just being as liberal as I can in the figures here, I basically would come up to $6,208 for those 2 years of lost revenue at an estimate. Those are estimated numbers. That's not the hard numbers for each year. It's just taking a base year and then the affected years and coming up with a number. So with that in mind, because it is a rough number, I would propose if we're gonna find some funds to help the team, that we would look at an amount of $5,000.
Would still help, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, every little bit helps, because our cost is, as you know, everything's just going up.
Yes.
But again, that's gonna be dependent on finding it in the budget too.
Okay,
Not, at this point right now, I can't say that we're gonna guarantee to give you that. I gotta find it in the budget first. That's kind of where I can leave it at.
No, I
So-
agree, because between when they met with us and even between our last meeting, I went to our budget and started looking myself. And I was surprised that there wasn't more cushion in places than I would have thought. And that's why I was hoping you would maybe find something I didn't.
So that's on that, that's where I'm at. So I would propose that we table this again until next meeting. Give me some time to look through the budget some more.
okay,
Until if it's okay, if we could postpone it until the second meeting in February, which would be
We
the.
need an updated calendar.
that
We're
20
still
that's 20?
operating up to 2022.
There's some in the,
There's some in the other.
there's some in the
Okay.
clerk's office. I will put
Like,
that
wait
one
a
up.
minute.
I think February 1st is the next
It is.
meeting.
Yes,
So that would be the 8th.
the
or the
15th.
15th.
15.
February 15th,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate anything you can do.
And then
Well,
procedurally wise, I don't know, do we have to do a motion to table this or anything, or does it?
No, it wasn't an
Just
action.
Consensus.
So having that in mind, the late item that I added was then the ARPA funds status. And Treasurer Heaney printed up some printouts on what the funds have been expended on so far. There was, between the two payments in 2021 and 2022, each of $718,002 each equally,
Mhm.
for a total of $436,004 was the total amount received for ARPA funds. To date, funds that have been expended are $812,937.06, leaving us a balance roughly, because things are always a little in flux, but roughly a balance of $623,066.94. And these represent where the funds have gone so far.
I appreciate that. I'd like to look at it and then I'll hand it back to you after Commissioner Shulman's finished.
And that one just has some receipts attached to it for those items that are invoices.
Has there been a second invoice from this company? I could see Strello listed once. But I thought, do you remember correctly?
Oh, I hope-
Patty, if-
I hope it's
I
not
thought
another one.
Strello
pending.
was gonna be 150,000 in the end.
I
That's
really
the original
don't recall.
projected. So we
Well, that's
have
my- What's that one
we have
for?
a bill of 52,000, but then there's one of 83,000.
I believe the initial one was 150. This was for the pool.
But I'm just looking at oh, okay, it's up here. So do we have any other invoices that we're going to be receiving from Strollo that would have? to be paid out of
Nothing.
this?
Nothing currently, nothing that's coming, but we are.
Meeting the next phase.
Yeah, the
with
next
Blueprints.
phase. And I just had a meeting with them yesterday. And they're basically proposing a contract for the next phase, which is doing the planning, the master planning work for the Justice Center itself. They've done the jail portion of it.
They have that finished.
Yes. And there might be a little change in it because some of they did that before we had acquired the Lincoln building. And so then some of it's changed just a little bit. So this next phase of planning might encompass those changes. Or they may have to reopen that one and redo portions of that.
Okay.
And right now, estimate, it's looking at about the same cost as the first one was.
And that was what we kind of originally proposed,
Yeah.
so that's good. Well, and I don't know how familiar you are with why this was proposed to inject some dollars into that. Or
Mhm. I was at
to
the,
get us
the-
back up. to
yeah, the
APHIS.
NRAC meeting and
Okay,
the court meetings. I think I was present for most of that.
thank you. In the budget moving forward, we'll have, the ability to access more match money from the federal side, but we had to get back up to full service levels before we could. do
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
In reviewing this, the first part of the ARPA funds is general service, and it's pretty broad on that part of the ability, what's available to expend those funds on.
Mhm.
So if you look through the past expenditures, the RV park, that's all intergovernmental, that's our project. Predator control, again, is another governmental expenditure, our partnership with APHIS.
But we also tied it in our deliberations to economic health of our community, bringing in the hunters, et cetera.
Yeah,
And-
it
and
hit
I'm
under
aware-
several different
Yeah,
categories.
But it all falls under the eligibility category of government services and is the most flexible eligibility use category as identified in the NACO
Right.
handout. So, and it's pretty broad. It's pretty broad through that category is what it could be spent on. So these are all
Eligible.
eligible.
They were all eligible for sure. We just were hoping to have a big chunk for.
And then most of our voice over IP phone system has all been charged to the ARPA account. Which again is an infrastructure, is a county infrastructure
And needed
type of,
upgrade.
yeah.
So will there be any other bills from that coming in?
There are that I've seen about $1,000. It should be the last of it.
That should be the last.
That should be the last of the upgrade that I've been
That you're
informed
aware
on.
of.
Yeah. So that would take us down to roughly 622,000.
It's good to know.
But where we don't have another pot of money to go out for the second half of our engineering for the jail justice center, we will need to use these ARPA funds to move forward with that, as we've not been able to secure
Do
any
you have
other
any
funds.
ballpark amount?
150 again.
But
Okay.
on this next one, on this next phase, and I need to talk with Strollo just a little bit more before I signed the contract, because they sent the contract for review, and it's been sent on along to the county council for review. Before I do that, I want to see where our obligation is right up front. But there is, in this meeting that I just attended, there is potential for some USDA grant funds that would basically pay for that. We may have to pay for it up front and then be
But potentially
reimbursed.
being reimbursed.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so that may help take care of that phase of funding needs.
Well,
we
but
can
I
at least get it
appreciate
off the ground.
Being, knowing that up front, because I'm starting to work the broadband more than I was before, and it's gonna cost some money.
So, and that's what I know at this point on the phase 2 planning for the Justice Center and dollars.
Question, just because it's been hard to find parking the last 2 days, and with snow and a trial or whatever's going on,
Even in good
Are
weather,
we-
it's always hard.
do
to
we
find
have
parking.
sufficient parking around our courthouse in general? This is just a new topic, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I think in part of their planning, they're gonna have to look at, and I think they had ideas of potentially taking this lot over
Right.
here
Right,
and paving it for
Right.
parking.
I do remember that
So
being
that will
mentioned.
help.
Okay.
And I think in one of the meetings last year that I'd sat in on, they had talked about taking out the jail and
Right,
this
I remember
facility and
hearing that
making
too.
parking there. I'd like to revisit that, think
Because we
maybe
also
that,
have a storage issue.
yeah, yes, and
That could be.
so I have some ideas there, but we may have to look at some other opportunities for parking or whatever. And depending on how the blueprints come out for the facility, if they put parking, if,
Sorry, that's special.
if they put a parking ring around the Lincoln building, kind of like what we have here at the courthouse, around 3 sides of the building here, that might help for parking over there as well.
Good, thank you. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Is there any thought still around asking the city to vacate that road? Pete had talked to the city about that.
Which road is that?
The road in between here and this next lot. He
Oh,
had that conversation with them.
that's news to me.
Okay.
I will, if I have some other topics I need to
I'd
contact
want
the city
more
about.
discussion if we do think
Yeah,
about
I
it.
didn't know how far the conversation went, but
I
I knew
never
that
heard,
they
yeah.
gave him a nod on that.
Oh, really?
And so.
Hmm.
I think that we need to, consider,
Okay, that's good to know. too.
and originally prior to the Lincoln building coming up for sale. We were looking at perhaps building a 911 center over there to alleviate some of the congestion in the sheriff's department. And now with the acquisition of the Lincoln building, and we're looking at that lot now as more of a potential parking area. The need for vacating the road might not be the same.
I will follow up with the city on it. I see what discussions had already been had on it. All right, for old business, any other conversation, discussions? Moving on then to new business. First agenda item under new business is resolution 2023-02, intra-fund transfer and line item renaming, Public Health Fund 245.
Any background of a sentence or two about that?
So the line item that was renamed for starters. There was a in 245, which is health department,
Mhm.
right? Get all those numbers correct. There was a line, personnel line for RN nurse practitioner, and they renamed it to front office.
Basically, in the budget process, we put all the funds in the one line, but some of those funds should have went into another line, and they recognize that, and so we're going back through the budget
No.
and saying, wait a minute, some of that should have went into this type of personnel, not all into the RN line.
And then the second portion of the resolution is from personal services line item. $40,000 to materials and supplies. Increase in materials and supplies. The personnel services line. $1,492,621, decreased by $40,000 to the materials supplies line. $429,912 increases by $40,000.
I think that's fine. I like it when we tweak things to reflect how things really are. So, and then as far as the renaming, it's fine.
As budget season, next budget season, this coming budget season comes along, accurate numbers in line items will help determine the use and how much we actually need in specific lines.
Absolutely. Well,
So I hear a motion.
yes, I move to approve resolution 2023-02 in the matter of intra-fund transfer of appropriations within categories and renaming a personnel expenditure line for public health, RHC Fund 245.
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve resolution 2023-02 in the matter of intra-fund transfer of appropriations within categories and renaming a personal expenditure line and renaming a personal expenditure line for public health, RHC Fund 245. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And the next item under new business is another resolution, resolution 2023-03. Assignment of ambulance service provider for the Harney County Ambulance Service Area. This is actually a renewal. The original one was done in 2017. Research of archive documents shows that there was a resolution for it at that time that they did, so I propose the refresh of that. And also part of the process for the application is an updated plan for the Harney County Ambulance Service Area Plan. And that requires our review and signatures on that. And the documents were in the packet, but here's if anybody wants any. And I also attached the ordinance itself that was created at that time for this process.
When I looked them over, it all looked okay to me. It looked standard from what it looked about like what we've been doing. Is this something that we renew every so often or revisit how often?
It's a 5-year.
5 year.
It's
okay.
a 5-year contract basically, or plan. Because we don't have, if we were in Bend or somewhere that had multiple ambulance services, then it would have to go out for a bid. Again, I had county council review it, and it's like a sole source. We only have one source here in Harney County, and that's HDH. So that's who we go with.
But there's no, from what I saw, there was nothing financial obligation
No.
attached with it. It's just a formal agreement.
Designation, really. So, unless there's any other conversation, I would hear a motion for approving resolution 2023-03 and approving the plan.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-03 in the matter of assignment of ambulance service provider for the Harney County Ambulance Service Area.
Second.
Heard a motion to approve resolution 2023-03 in the matter of assignment of ambulance service provider for the Harney County Ambulance Service Area. and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And the next items I'd like to, I don't know how long your broadband portion is gonna be.
If you need to move something
I
around,
was gonna propose moving a couple around.
it's fine.
First off, I'm gonna move around and move up. Application for approval for a location of telephone conduit and buried cable paralleling or crossing county roads. These were provided by the roadmaster, Mr. Bushella. And they are, the way I've kind of got it was formality in nature, but you approved, you reviewed everything and didn't find any
Yeah, and
conflicts.
basically, we approved the line being installed around the crane area. But to get to the crane area, of course, they have to run parallel with Highway 78. In doing so, they cross some county roads. So it's kind of one of those technicalities, is that sure, it crosses the county road, but the county road intersects with the state highway, which is still in the right of way of the state highway. So, you know, it's, yeah.
And also, I mean, this is for fiber
Yes,
going to
yes.
train, right? So
Yes.
this in some ways kind of joins with your broadband topic.
It will for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just at least as far as the mapping out and planning.
And
and
all the
everything.
installations are gonna be done with a horizontal road, so they won't be disturbing any asphalt or even on the gravel roads. There won't be any ditches. It'll all be horizontal. No effect.
Okay, and this is from Wind Wave Communications. I remember last year sometime when the topic that came
Yeah,
up.
now
kind of-
September, I think. we
Yeah, I
approved
think we
that.
were wondering what the company was. We weren't familiar with it at the time, but they.
So county court review and approval is necessary. There's signature for all of us. Again, I don't know if this requires a motion or it's just review and
Well, in case it does, I move that to approve and have us sign the application for approval of the local telephone conduit and buried cable paralleling or crossing county roads as briefed by the roadmaster.
Second.
I've had a motion to review and sign application for approval for a location of telephone conduit buried cable paralleling our crossing county roads along paralleling Highway 78. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. These were all pinned together and I separated them. Make sure you don't have any of them. But we missed one. I think that's all going.
I think we need to get that.
You don't like to
Oh,
handwrite
handwrites, a
that
few of them
stuff?
in there, so.
I like it. Does it matter about the date on the top? No, because
And I guess check the yes box too, since we.
Do you know when that work will begin?
I do not. Do not ask. I know that they were getting closer with the
Application. being
application
complete.
being put in, but I don't know. I don't think that
As long as it's not late summer.
one.
A lot of cattle get moved in.
Yes.
And then the next item under new business being moved around here is decision to sell 2022 land foreclosures. Acts, and then the properties, there's 5 properties. Account numbers 10235, 20259, 20450, 47405, and 59519. Of varying sizes. Again, I forwarded them to the roadmaster for his review to see if there was any interest in the county keeping them.
I didn't see any. I mean, some of them are really isolated. Callow Valley, you know, that checkerboard out in the middle and various locations out here in the basin. I just didn't see a need for it from my perspective.
And I know no other reasons to hang on to them at this time. It's kind of hard to tell where each piece is based on the small map that is
Yeah, I
given
would
with the
like a
package.
little better descriptor map.
So what I was going to work on was a simple Google Earth map with pins of where these are each
Well, at
located
least
at.
a road somewhere or some sort of.
You know, just because there is a list.
I mean,
It
we
would
could
make me
go
feel more
in and
comfortable.
pull it back
It would
up.
make me feel.
One that we can get a broad overview of where they're located at. And this is the most recent updated list from the assessor's office on current properties that are,
So there's,
yeah, and the ones I highlighted in yellow are from the last meeting in October 5th.
and they've been,
And those
well,
ones
not
were
all of
approved.
them sold though. Were
No.
Some of them that went up for sale, but we didn't have successful bids on all of them.
Yeah, I don't know the exact status on all of them, but that's what they're carrying on their list right now. And then these 5, will be 5 more on that list. So that's why I kind of wanted to be able to pinpoint all these different properties where they're located. And including these 5, and be able to see a picture as to whether or not
It's
for some other
hard to
uses.
visualize potential
Yeah,
use, yeah.
you know, whether it's trades or whatever might come along, I don't
Even if we
know.
had the planning department work us up a larger map that we could, you know, work from.
I think
That
that'd be a
have the
good
tax
practice.
lot numbers
going
and then,
forward.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're getting quite a few on this list, and if any of them are co-located or located next to public lands or whatever,
potential trades.
yes, you know, I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
not proposing any, but something that's beneficial for both parties.
Because we get a good review from, you know, the roadmaster on, as it relates to the work of our road department and their needs and their, you know, contingencies. But we have other things we need to look at it for too, which I think that'd be a good practice going forward.
Does it identify all these properties and where they're,
It'll give you the township and range.
yeah, well, that's what
It'll show you.
these ones have the
Where it is.
township and range, the new ones. These ones have township and range listed also. But then you have to plot it on a map to see their orientation and where they're at and their relation to other properties and.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'd like to see is the overall picture of where they're at.
Right.
And some of these have already been okayed for sale. I mean, if they're still in county ownership, if the title's been changed to county ownership, then I guess we could probably go back and unless somebody comes in and makes a request for a piece of county-owned property to be sold, hold on to them for a while and see if there's any other plan for them or whatever.
I agree.
until we can get it onto a map and then we can, get more of them on the for sale list. Because we've had an actual thorough review. You know, I don't want to hold on to them too long. I'd love to see them get back on the tax rolls, but I'd like to have a little better understanding of where they're located prior to pulling the trigger.
So I would propose that we table this item then, as far as not just clearing them for sale, putting them in the sale category, but we table this until we can
Get the
explore it a little
proper
bit more.
paperwork and maps and.
I agree. Let's do that.
Okay, and then. Suzanne, how long are you gonna need?
Just a couple of minutes, just give an update on the city of PP and, the emergency operations plan. How fast do you want me to do it? 5, 10 minutes?
As
Talk
Ten.
slow.
What,
how long are you gonna need for your?
I'm gonna need a
presentation?
little while. I'm probably just gonna need 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the discussion that you all may want to engage in.
Are we looking like we're going to need to recess? And come back after lunch, or can we squeeze it all in 45 minutes?
It depends on, I mean, I don't want her to be rushed. I kind of have a lot of general deliberation things, but I don't have a noon Zoom meeting today in case we want to just press on. That'd be all right.
Then I would propose that we let Suzanne give her presentation.
Okay. And I actually have copies for each of you because I didn't have them in advance. For the Grant Harney cooperative and the meetings from the last CWPP meeting, the minutes from it, and the attendance list. So that's just an update of what we're doing. Our next Grant Harney Fire Prevention Cooperative meeting is January 31st in Seneca. The co-op's been around since 1980, and we work cooperatively together to do fire prevention outreach.
I think I heard that on the radio this morning.
Yes, you did, because we talked about it. Participation in the county fairs, which we hadn't done, Harney County hadn't done previously a lot. We didn't have a lot of time to do outreach. We did participate this year in two ways. We did an emergency management side, and then we did a CWPP survey side where we had people marking on the maps and stuff like that. And we did a informal kind of just counting beans, you know, put a bean in the jar kind of thing so that we could get, you know, an oversight of the community and see what they were thinking. You know, what is our fire risk? So we're working as a strategy to work between Grant Harney and do more outreach for the communities. So the meeting minutes are in there. We work with BLM, Forest Service, both counties, all of the city fire departments. And we just come together and work on what's our plan. You know, what kind of plan do we have for doing the outreach on the CWPP? We did have meetings in French Glen and here in town back in October. The French Glen one was way better. There were a lot more ranchers and stuff involved in town. It's hard to get people to come out. We did have some, you know, citizens come out, but they actually thought it was for the Forest Service wildland urban interface
Yeah.
issue. And so they left after they realized that's what it wasn't for. We did have Stacy Davies out in town, and he was a wealth of information, and just having him and a couple other people there was really, actually, it made it a nice small group where we could discuss a bigger picture on the wildland protection programs. So that's what we're continuing to work on. We have quarterly meetings here at Burns Fire Department. And then we're restarting the quarterly meetings on this co-op. It had kind of died off for a little while. Grant County has always been really good about it, but Irene lives up in Grant County, so she keeps it going up there. But it's been hard since we weren't updating the CWPP at the time. We were still working on the fire break issue, which we got it all figured out and got grants for and got it paid for. I know I've come to you all before that previously, so the fire break up above the city of Pines into the city of Burns. Work started on that last year. This year, the contractor will be coming in and doing the private land side of it. We're using the utility right of ways and we're just clearing those and using the 47 road as the fire break. So on both sides on the utility right of ways, we're clearing all of the juniper and sage out of that. And making that a complete fire break, which will meet up with radar and then meet up with lone pine. So we will have a complete fire break around the cities.
Does, and how does, if they do, the tribe fit into this?
The tribe is part of the meetings. They come out, they're actually working on their own fire plan and actually working on a fire break around the reservation. They have been working, so Manuel Mose is the new emergency manager. He's also the planner and a bunch of other things. And so he comes over and we work on a lot of the grants and stuff together. And I'm helping him training, and then of course, any issues that come up, I help him with. They got a grant for a walking path. And they're going to double purpose that as a fire break also, and have it paved and all of those kinds of things. So that's something that, that was like one of his first projects. They also got some new fire equipment out there, and they're working on trying to create a fire department, getting more of their, the people on the reservation involved in, working on fires. Right now, Cecil and Kenton are covered by Heinz Fire for all of their trainings and certifications. They're also on the RFPAs and they come out on everything, including search and rescue.
Good.
So you can peruse those with, you know, I won't take up time reading it to you, so you all can read those. And again, we have a meeting coming up. The second thing I'm working on is our emergency operations plan for the county is due June 30th of this year. I've been working on it. The current one is from 2017. And I think I've talked to some of you separately about the beast that is our emergency operations plan. So this actually also cost us $27,000 to do. This whole part of the plan just talks about Harney County. It doesn't have any specific information regarding the essential support functions or the individual disasters. This is just a lot of minutia on basic plan. When you get back here, here's all the essential support functions. And then once you get into the actual hazards that we have in Harney County, they're literally just 6 pages, double-sided, so it's 3 pages in each section, which just has a checklist on what to do. What I'd really like to see this is this section that says what to do in the emergency in each department in a go box where they can take it and it has a checklist specifically for like terrorism. Here's a checklist and for a terrorism incident checklist. So I think that the people need to be able to get to this part without having to try to figure out what part of this that they actually need.
No, they could just throw the whole thing at them and call it good.
Well,
In and of itself, it's.
I'd be hard pressed as if I were a new
To my
emergency
three
manager to try to figure out where I was supposed to go in this. I mean, there's a lot of incident summary status. It's got a copy of every incident command FEMA form in there. We have those in go boxes already. And so there's no reason to have all of that specifically in this. It's a lot of work.
Well, and Melinda and I visited, and she said that she'd done some updating of some of the that part.
public
And
health side.
is that in that, or is that in a separate?
It's, well,
document?
public health emergency preparedness has a separate binder that's just for
So
public health
it's nothing
emergencies.
in,
Part of it is actually in our plan, also because we do have a tab for public health related emergencies. We also have volcanoes in here, which
so is her update, her updated material
will be
that
included.
will be, but hasn't
Yes,
yet.
correct. It's a separate plan. Like a pandemic plan at the spin up of COVID. We actually had a pandemic plan. The state has one. FEMA had just updated theirs in 2019. When the pandemic started, we immediately grabbed our pandemic plan and we couldn't figure out why we were having these issues nationwide. Everybody had new updated plans, but nobody opened the book. And I think a lot of times it's because it's something monstrous like this. When I was at the OAMA conference, Sonoma County was there out of California after they had the big wildfires and stuff like that. And they overhauled the emergency management program, which is what I want to do. Part of it was, this is their emergency operations plan. Their annexes are in a separate binder because that's what you need in an emergency, not this. So this is how emergency management works in Sonoma County. It's 85 pages. And actually, they've got a lot of graphics in it, whole page graphics, where if you took those out, it would even be less pages. I mean, we can make it look, I want to make it look professional and nice, and I want it to be something that somebody actually wants to read and look at. And not just have us sign off on something that we didn't read every single page of. I haven't read every single page of the emergency operations plan part, but I've updated the ESFs and the actual incidences.
So is our plan something that is, I mean, it needs to be where everyone who needs to be familiar with it has
Right.
access. However, is it sensitive in a way to quote terrorists or others, you know, who would want to see
No.
what our plans are?
No, there's nothing in there that would put us in a position, you know, a reactive position.
Any
So-
vulnerabilities for operation security?
So, okay, that's.
And,
that was my
and this
question.
plan right here is online. It's online as a PDF.
Where is
which-
it?
It's on the emergency management page.
Okay, thank
Also,
you.
our natural hazard mitigation plan is there. Also, again, another 1,000 pages of stuff that it's hard to plow through. Our natural hazard mitigation plan is due in 2025. The Department of State Lands already reached out. We've already signed off so that they can get a grant to update our plan so that we don't have to pay for it. We don't have to do anything except for sign off when we get it, and then it'll be promulgated by the county court.
Did you tell them it has to be 50 pages or less?
I wish. Because they're doing it, they're getting the grant money through FEMA, they do it the way that they do it. DLCD does it their way.
If you want me to do it, I will do it for $27,000.
It's like, can I get 27,000 in my budget if I update this and make it easier to read? And that was paid for by grant money too.
I will, that's what I'm looking for. I would say, I'm all in favor of this process. Back years ago in another life that I had, I was the emergency management coordinator for Harney County. And when I first took on that role, I think we had 2 binders of about that size.
Yeah,
And I faced the exact same thing, that nobody was gonna pull one of those binders off the shelf to find out what we needed to do in an emergency. There was a lot of redundancy in the plan, that was information that was stated over and over and over again. So I undertook a process of taking those 2 binders and whittling it down to a 2-inch binder, I believe is what I had at the time, with hazard specific
right,
annexes that tell you how to deal with each, or things, actions that should be taken in a specific hazard,
Right.
whether that's a hazmat issue, a flood issue, or whatever. So I'm fully supportive, I guess that was the term I was looking for, was supportive of your efforts in this. The only question I would have is, are you able to do this in your work time now? And any increased costs for doing that process?
no, I've already started on the process when I first started working on it, and so I'm already a year in. It's just going through here, now I actually have to read the whole thing to make sure that I transfer over the information that actually needs to be in there. And then we will have we'll actually have 3 binders, or actually a booklet like this and 2 binders. So 1 binder will include the essential support functions, which is our state and local partners, all of our partners that we would reach out to, community-based organizations, and all of their contact information, because that's not in here, and that's really needed. In an emergency, you want to be able to hand that to a logistics person or a planning person and say, here's the essential support functions, figure out who we need and call these people. None of that kind of information is put in there. For the hazard specific, we want to make that a separate binder, so you can just flip to the tab. You're not searching for which binder it is. It'll be clearly marked. It'll be professionally done, and we can use it countywide. All of the agencies in an emergency should know who their partners are and who they need to call. I'm just a one-person shop, so me having to do all of that and reach out to all of these people, hey, you need to, flip to this, or hey, you need to call these people, when they're also possibly being impacted by the emergency. So every department needs to know what the plan is. And I want to make it in, like Melinda and I both have Go boxes, where I have all of the FEMA forms. I have just printouts of this in folders instead of in binders, where I can immediately grab what I need on the go in my rig, wherever I am, and say, okay, this is what we need to do, and here's the checklist, and let's just get her done. And I would like to see it more efficient and have us be proactive more than reactive.
How, in remembering how it used to be, but even, I know things have changed a lot in the meantime. If you're faced with a specific hazard incident of whatever type, in order to request resources from state, does the county still have to make a disaster or an emergency declaration?
When we're in the mix of it, we don't at that time. I can immediately just get an ORS number from the state and start requesting resources. We will have to declare at some point, but that's not the first thing we need to worry about.
Okay.
So my first phone call is first getting everybody going, and then calling ORS and getting a state emergency number so that I can start requesting resources, because all requests have to go through the state, no matter those essential support functions. It's just, I still would call all of those people and give them a heads up. Hey, this is coming from the state. I've already put in a request.
Okay. So as you're getting task orders for different types of resource needs or whatever, then you refer to those
Essential support
Essential.
functions. Yeah, and it'll be just in its own separate little packet so that we aren't again digging through. This, I think, comes out to 835 pages. And so they have 1/10 of that just for emergency management operations, and that's so simple because this is my job.
Okay.
So that's I have one more thing, so with the.
Just a second on that.
Yeah.
How does that intersect with this body?
Because you all are the governing body when it comes to declarations of emergencies, and
But other than a declaration of emergency that we need to sign and send to the state, what is required of us, if anything?
what is this body's role?
I would think we need to be familiar with our particular roles in emergency operation centers and that type of thing.
right, and the 402 class that we brought here, and we're gonna bring another one. Paul's gonna do one here in a couple of probably 8 weeks or so.
And what's up?
It's a 402 class, is emergency management for elected officials specifically.
It's FEMA 402. I see it at the
ICS
ICS system.
But also FEMA just came out with a new packet for governing bodies, for government officials. And they had it in the draft copy and they're getting ready to come out with the final. So as soon as that's done, I will forward it to you as a PDF. And that is basically your role in an emergency. So it's hard to outline because it depends on the type of county commissioners and that kind of thing, the type of governing body you have in each county. So basically what you'll see in there is we'll have to pick through and see how we do it and say, this is how we're gonna do this, and this is who needs to be notified first. I'm sure if it's
flexibility within your form of government.
yeah. And who wants to take what roles, is somebody's jam public health, and does somebody, want to work on wildfires specifically and be the first notified and learn all of the things that we need to do in those types of situations. Overall, though, I think it's a good overview of what elected officials need to know.
You'll let us know when the training.
I went to
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And it was good, so.
And we had people, newly elected city council people and new mayors and new commissioners from Malheur County, Grant County. I think we had one from Union. And basically, the thing is like, I didn't know we could request this stuff from the state, because there are things you guys can do with the state that I can't do as an emergency manager. And once the declarations are out there, then you can start reaching out to representatives to get funding, to get additional assistance that we can't get from just OEM.
Is there any prerequisites before this 402? You have to have the 100 or 200 or anything?
No, it's just strictly for elected officials, and they know that a lot of them don't have those trainings. The last thing is the phase one of the communications project. At the end of 2022, that money did not roll over, and so we are going to do a resolution. We didn't have time. We're still looking at the budget lines and seeing what didn't roll over. And then we will submit a resolution on the next county court date. And so I'm just asking for support for that. The money is already in the budget. It's not one where we have to draw down. So we just need to move that back into the line where we can continue with the project.
So I had a discussion with Treasurer Haney and when there's a balance at the end of each line item at the end of the year, that balance doesn't stay in that line and then move forward. It all gets mixed with general fund
Now,
funds.
when you say the end of the year, are you talking December?
Well,
or
the end fiscal
June?
year, the
Okay.
end of the fiscal year. So then when it comes budget time for the following year, all that money goes back into a pot and is redistributed throughout all those lines. Instead of having 75,000 stay in this line, it gets all put together and
Even
redistributed.
if the funds are outside of.
No, the non-general fund funds are their own animal.
Okay, because
I'm
the
learning
the
still.
fairgrounds, we've had this conversation because we've had some of the funds within that get moved
Mhm.
back
And we-
into the general fund, and that's not helpful when you're trying to actually plan to do any projects and do things.
They should, if they're, I believe, other fund, we'll have to have this discussion, get education from Treasurer Heaney. But I believe if they're not general fund,
Well, that
Funds,
was
they
always
should
my
stay.
impression, and then I heard otherwise, and I'm like, how? It's not part of the general fund, how is it getting commingled back in?
I'll find out.
Okay,
I'll get
thank you.
educated on that one.
That
And
would
find
be
out
very
even
helpful.
if they're not general fund, what are we, budget officer, whatever, not allowed to do?
Okay.
Because that'd be interesting to.
So these funds then went back into the general fund pool, so to speak. And the line items were filled up and this specific item, this specific line didn't get filled with this 75,000. It was just a oversight, not aware of actually what was needing to be expended against that line item, whatever. But the funds are there. We just gotta find them and move them back into that line. And that'll be, didn't want to do that resolution this time around. I just kind of wanted to have a little discussion on it and any questions on it, and then we'll have it next time.
And is that the state funds from DOS, or is that the?
It's the DOS money.
Okay. I did have a follow-up on the DOS conversation. I would really appreciate it if you'd reach back out to them just one more time and make sure there was no reporting required, because it's highly unusual with anything with DOS that there isn't.
Yeah,
some
we
form of
were
reporting.
surprised. It was lottery funding. We never got anything back on that. I know Pete reached out. They simply deposited the full amount into the general fund. And
Well,
then
and
we would
sometimes
enroll in
months
it.
later, though, they'll come back and say, oh, we do want reporting, and so.
Right.
If you can just do one double
Absolutely.
check on that, I would sleep better.
Well, and I wondered about that. I mean,
It's
with our
highly
distance grant,
unusual for DOS not to, and they'll give you the money, because I mean, even the fairgrounds had that, and then several months later, they said, oh, and here's the reporting we want with that.
Right.
But up front, we kept asking for that, and they're like, oh, nothing, and then they're like, oh, yeah, wait a minute.
okay.
We
that's
do
good to know.
have this other reporting, we do want that.
Yeah, we asked early on and there was just nothing. We weren't getting any,
Correspondence.
anybody
on that.
back saying, yes, you need to do this. And that's been since 2021. So I, of course, would like to be proactive and stay ahead of that because I don't want any trouble on the backside. With the
Yeah,
congressional directed
and they
spending
often
money.
have change of staff on their side too, and sometimes balls can get dropped.
Yeah. And we, of course, at least with the CDS money, it's within the Justice Grant Program. We don't actually have to do any major reporting. I just have to say, yes, we're spending it for what we're doing. And so the reporting has been very simple. We're already up to date on it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot simple. I mean, the money's just sitting there and we're just drawing down from it. So there's not the same grant oversight like there is with the cops grant that the sheriff's office has to deal with. We do it a little different, but we're current on that and we're good to go for phase 2. Good. And that's everything I had and now I went over.
Good.
Take it off your time next time.
There you go. I'll talk faster and have less stuff.
All right,
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
last item under new business is county broadband status from Commissioner Doral.
Okay, good. So Harney County, beyond the cities of Burns and Hines and some of the stuff that, My Wave and LSN were doing over the last few years and perhaps some outside providers to provide high-speed internet. That's one thing, but our remote and rural communities and areas in Harney County have really not, received the benefit of any attention yet on broadband. And a lot of things are happening, funding federally, time-wise, et cetera. And now is the time for Harney County to step up and do what we can for that piece of it. So in attending some of the broadband action team BAT teams that have already been established, formed, and been working, some of them for 2 years in the state of Oregon. Some of the counties and entities regionalize, sometimes occasionally a county will not regionalize, and they've been formed, but we haven't done that yet. And they've all been done with money. They didn't do it internally, like I'm just going to convene a BAT and do it. They had a lot of technical and subject matter expertise involved in these things. And so to some extent, some of the areas, many of the areas in the state of Oregon are, quote, ahead of us because they've been doing this stuff, but not all. And as I've been tracking them and talking to folks, had conversation with Greater Eastern Oregon Development Corps, Susan Christensen, EODC. I asked her to always keep her ears out in case she's hearing things. And now is the time, basically. And so Malheur County, I reached out to them and like a year ago, and then again recently to Judge Joyce and just said, have you begun? Is anyone doing anything in your community? And he said, no, we aren't. And I said, well, be thinking about it. And maybe we'll talk in case it would be beneficial for us to work together. And so when I touched base a couple of weeks ago, I can tell they haven't really done much yet, but they are possibly open to it. And he said, well, if you can put together a white paper or something, kind of laying it out, and then our county court can start talking about it. So what I've done is I did that. I haven't given it to them yet. I wanted to kind of read it to you. I can provide you a copy of it here after the meeting if you want it. It's some research I've done and conversations with some counties and some professionals I've been referred to for information. So here we go. This would be what I would be providing if you agree. Harney County Court seeks Malheur County's partnership and participation to bring high-speed broadband capacity to our counties in general and to our most frontier, distant, and remote rural areas in particular. This concept paper is offered as background for county-to-county discussion on this topic. Background: federal funding to bring high-speed internet/broadband to all communities across the U.S. is a national priority and is beginning to roll out. Record levels of investment in broadband build-out are being made with a goal to ensure that every American who wants to can access high-speed internet from their home. The bipartisan infrastructure law was passed at the federal level, and the Oregon Business Development Department is the recipient of a $5 million Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Planning Grant and a $782,000 State Digital Equity Program grant. So Oregon's getting at least that amount. To some extent, that's less than they were thinking they were going to get from the feds.
Yeah. I was like, what?
So this funding will develop action plans for high-speed internet deployment to ensure all residents of the state are covered, and develop digital equity plans that identify and assess gaps in access and affordability. However, rural communities face bigger challenges in accessing these funds compared to their urban neighbors. According to, and this is a report, Pathways to Securing Rural Federal Funding Report, commissioned by the Ford Family Foundation. Rural communities' top 3 challenges to securing federal funding include capacity, expertise, and resources. We need to address these challenges in order to access the federal funding to make fast, affordable, and reliable internet services a reality for our entire county populations. As identified in the report, rural communities need to have several strategies in place in order to connect their residents to fast, reliable internet and secure broadband funding from both state and federal resources. 1, establish a broadband action team, or a BAT, that brings together public and private stakeholders to educate, inform, and advocate for their community at state and federal levels. BATs ensure continuity for a community and help identify and coordinate regional projects. 2, identify broadband gaps and prioritize project areas. 3, identify funding opportunities to meet the gaps. 4, work with a firm to develop engineering designs, business case scenarios, and identify partners for the prioritized project areas. And finally, applying for funding and are going out for RFPs. Harney and Malheur counties have not yet established and or joined a BAT and begun the foundational work needed to secure broadband funding from both federal and state sources. The time to do so is now, and the time to consider and make decisions on whether to pursue a regionalized approach together is now. So we don't have to regionalize, but I'll cover here that there are many advantages to working together for an effort like this. Now is the time for Oregon entities and regions who have not yet done so to assess their needs, identify gaps, and develop pre-engineering studies for near and long-term broadband infrastructure investments. This work is necessary to ensure all residents have access to high-speed internet in the years to come. The federal and state funding mechanisms are in place and local data and planning is needed. For 2 years, BATs in other areas across the state have been created and proceeded with broadband planning and engineering work. Timing is right for Southeast Oregon to form a BAT comprised of Harney and Malheur counties. As neighboring large frontier rural counties with shared border and similarly remote low population communities, Harney and Malheur counties together form a considerable region with similar challenges. Malheur and Harney counties can benefit from lessons learned and the early work of the already established Oregon BATs. Somewhat preset templates and plans have already now been developed by some of these BATs, and that would be helpful for our consideration and use. This can reduce costs. I have personally attended Zoom meetings of the Morrow County BAT and the South Central Oregon Economic Development District BAT, which is Lake and Klamath. And they were professionally facilitated, extremely productive, and well represented with key sectors and stakeholders, technical subject matter experts, internet service providers, and community members and leaders. The advantages to forming a regionalized BAT: the Southeast region of Oregon, Harney and Malheur counties, constitutes a huge geographic region of the state and arguably presents among the most underserved, low population, remote, distant frontier area of Oregon, as well as the continental United States. Bridging the equity and access gaps to provide pre-engineering studies, infrastructure recommendations, and funding strategies for both counties will undoubtedly be a significant and similar challenge for both. There are benefits to regionalizing rather than each county forming its own BAT and pursuing the work separately. 1, forming a 2-county BAT for Malheur and Harney counties will enable us to add our small populations together for the total number of people and households served. This is important to compete for funding. 2, a regionalized approach will bring economies of scale to the considerable work involved. 3, regionalization may attract and interest a larger group of internet service providers. That's a big challenge for us. Not too many want to provide the services out here. A regionalized approach for the outreach needed to get the data points makes sense for efficiency and costs. Very few people in Harney County have done what they needed to become a data point, even though we put out some ads and things. The BAT would take that on. The bigger the project, the higher the visibility and the more motivation for contractors to make it a huge success and a feather in their cap. They can make a name for themselves if they can crack this nut. The state and federal broadband offices have limited staff. Multi-jurisdictional projects that combine small population areas make those applications more palatable for them from an administrative standpoint. So those are some of the reasons why. Now, if Malheur County isn't interested, that's fine, but let's talk about it and make sure that that's what they want. What are what's the process or likely steps involved? First, agree to the concept, sign an MOU or an IGA to form a BAT and to seek contracted support services. Issue an RFP, review and evaluate the proposals and award a contract and convene the BAT. Draft timeline. See, I don't know. I'm gonna give them some big ballpark numbers, whether they have money or not, whether they can do it, whether they'd want to wait till the new fiscal year, whether they want to.
So is there funding to be applied for from the state to convene these?
No. I'll double check, but
From what I've read, that to me seemed kind of part of the essence. of what
people
the-
jumped on
the
it
state
early
and
on and
federal
we
was
didn't.
Supposed to be providing was that funding support for this.
Some of the more sophisticated counties were able to obtain some of that early funding that is no longer here to do some of this, and counties like ours that don't have the capacity to
I
jump
just
right on
wonder,
it.
though, if they're gonna do a round 2 of funding, if the initial funding got used up, is there, any opportunity to push for them to open up a second round for funding for?
And there,
Definitely good question.
and there might be, and this topic. We want to make sure we're not competing with each other or whatever, but this topic of broadband was picked up by the community response team, CRT, last meeting. And the next meeting, February, Representative Marsh, I
Yes.
think it is,
Mhm.
is supposed to be attending via Zoom. And she's one of the leading people, knowledge base, whatever, on this. So even with the legislative session beginning, she might have some good information or feedback on bills that are in
And
place.
she
for-
may have a bill proposed to help provide some funding.
So
We'll
we might
make
get
some
more of
additional
that-
calls as
we'll get
well
some
as
more
we'll
of
hear
that
what she said.
information.
Yeah.
The next CRT meeting.
Because my answer to Kristen is somewhat dated. I haven't asked recently, a while back,
Yeah.
when I
I did
asked,
see an
they were like,
email,
oh, well,
but
we've
it
already
keeps
spent
Coming
it.
out with, things that look like there's an opportunity to go pursue some funds to get these things going, but,
I'll get more information on that. I literally wrote this the last 2 days after making a lot of calls and
but
things.
somewhat we need to decide, before we go further, are we partnering with another county as an initial step?
I mean, if Malheur County becomes interested and, we can have discussions, all of us with them, whatever we want. But if they're not, it'd be nice to know that pretty soon, because I think we need to become active this coming year. I don't think we can continue to not.
But this white paper just simply serves as information and an invitation.
Right.
to
engage.
potentially show it,
That's my
yeah.
intent. I haven't written one like this before. What would be the draft timeline? And I mean, these were the things when I talked to Judge Joyce, he said, yeah, if you can write paper, it's a timeline, so I tried to make these topics, even though if I don't have all the answers. Once the decision's made in month 1, sign an MOU and issue an RFP. Month 2 or 3, depends on how long you want to have it out for bid, evaluate the proposals, award the contract. And then the next month after that, begin the BAT work. And there are entities who have been the contracted support to BATs. There's a lot of them. There's also, I've heard people coming out of the woodwork who aren't as qualified coming out. So, we would definitely want to evaluate.
Do your homework.
Yeah,
So back up just a step. What would the RFP be for? What service are,
well, I'll get to that here.
okay.
Okay,
Well,
Um,
and that my proposal to that timeline would be prior to the RFP, that this securing funding for the RFP would, be the step prior to that we'd go out and find out. And, one of the meetings that's probably most likely to come from would be the upcoming CRT meeting, when direct questions to Representative Marsh be asked about how do we secure funding to get our BATs up and going if we didn't secure funding in round 1?
I will
that.
make additional calls, which will be very recent calls before the next CRT to the Oregon Office of Broadband, to the GEODC, the other entities, there's a few more, and just say what grants, if any, can help us move forward with at this point for the work of the broadband action teams, et cetera, because we're ready to do that. We need funding. I'll double check all that
Yeah,
and
how are
see.
those funds secured and.
So, good. What are the goals? Now, this is me from conversations and getting hold of stuff and looking at, it, not me, because I know everything. You know, broadband, I'd say, what would the services need to be? We'd need to have broadband action team services, contract for professional services to include a multi-stakeholder coalition, facilitated meetings, producing reports, liaison with the players. They have a state broadband action team, you know, and the other ones, you know, are represented at that and other broadband forums. I keep hearing that you have to have a pre-engineering study, for lack of a better term, to get the federal funds, because you have to have a plan, basically. You do have to have a plan, and that may cost quite a bit. We have a study that the county contracted for in 2018, and that's something, but it's not sufficient. So, and I don't know what Malheur County, I don't know yet if they have ever done anything, so.
Is that what was on that thumb drive that I gave you the other day? Have you looked at it?
I looked at it after you gave it to me, and it's one of those metadata indecipherable. No, there was one part of it that it was someone's proposal that we did not end up selecting. It was a
So it
proposal.
was just an outside entity that submitted the thumb drive with a proposal for.
Correct.
I haven't
I'll hang
looked
on
at
to
it,
it,
so-
but yeah.
My concern is any work that's already been done, any surveys that have already been done. When we're going down this track, any work that's already been done, if we can give that to the contractor or whatever, so that it's.
Reduce our costs and move
Absolutely.
forward. I
I think
agree.
this is a perfect example of it. You know, Wind Wave has done work, we know My Wave has, we know Wilderness Wireless has, there's a cable, you know, between here and Ontario that's already in place. And so, you know, really part of the work that you would hope that they would do would be to gather information from the entities that are already doing work within the county. And then, you know, I know the federal government likes to say for every American, we're going to provide broadband, but is there a caveat to that where in rural areas like this and people are so spread out, that is not an achievable goal. I don't care who you think you are. You're not going to run a cable line to every single house in Harney County. And so where is their cutoff for that? Like, what do they consider a reasonable achievement of this goal? Because we know it's not achievable to run fiber optics to every home. And then if you run fiber, you then put out every other type of business that wasn't using fiber. And so like, then you're, you know, controlling the private markets also by
I think
implementing the fiber versus the satellite or other industries that are already in play, providing a form of internet service. And so I think that there's a bigger picture to be looked at besides what the federal government's, you know, saying, this is what we want.
Right.
I mean, just out of speculation, I can, and the fiber that's here to town, that's brought to town, that was here for the lottery warm site originally. You know, portions of that or percentages of that were offered up for commercial use. And I think that's some way, probably this is gonna end up is however you get the fiber to an area, then it's opened up to private industry to then lease portions of the broadband, portions of that bandwidth, whatever, for their customers, whether that's My Wave and their model of wireless with an antenna. And there's two services here in town that have that type of a model.
Yeah, My Wave and Wilderness.
Or whether it's, you know, you get it close enough to some smaller communities where you can actually run a hard cable to a house. But that, I think that's where private industry is gonna have to pick things up.
Well, and I'd be interested to see, with the grant the BSD provided to the school in Diamond, what exactly did that look like? Who did they engage with? You know, how did they accomplish that? Because, you know, that was a major feat, but it was through a grant the BSD helped them to achieve. And so what work is even the ESD doing to help the rural schools currently, and what stage are
And where
they
can
at?
that be a public-private partnership from there if they
Yeah,
are
like
Yeah.
who owns whatever work was done to that facility.
And I
I'm
will
super
say,
curious.
you're both very correct, and, in the discussions I've had with folks, I've always said, and even on the NACO calls that I've been on for the Rural Action Caucus, one time there was one about broadband, and I don't always pipe up on those, but this time, I just did, I said, when you say broadband, this was the head of Washington DC broadband, I said, for the frontier rural areas that are so remote, I said, we cannot even envision a scenario where you would ever lay cable to these long distances, rough terrain, it wouldn't make sense. So when you say broadband, Office of Broadband and all this, are you including hybrid models of service provision that will look different? Because there's no way. And they went, oh, yeah, we've got to make sure we do that. Of course. But I was like,
But was it done?
and these bats, and a couple of the folks I talked about on bats, I said, our bat focus is going to be a lot different than, Lane County. And with their rural areas, I said, we're talking something different. And they said, nope, that's what a bat's all about. They use the term broadband, but in this case, it means high-speed internet. However, so good point, but
Well, then
yes,
you have companies like Spectrum also that I know is, moved in here locally. And that you can go like on their website and find out whether you're within their service area.
Right.
And so we've had an influx in the last even 5 years of additional private companies coming in
True.
here and providing service that we didn't have access to prior.
And therefore our community, our Burns Hines community bases are serviced fairly well by 3 or 4 different providers. Again, it's our frontier rural isolated areas.
Well, and then with a company like that, running cable to Crane, that box is getting checked along the way,
Yeah,
down
the Diamond
205
box,
out to the
you know,
EOCA, they've run, fiber.
to me,
down
the
Egan,
fields
they've run
area
fiber.
really needs, and if that means some coordination with the state of Nevada, and there's, this is what a bat can do. And when you mention all these providers, which I'm just jotting down to keep them, front and center in my
Well,
head.
Wilderness Wireless is CTC out of Idaho.
Yeah, but at any rate, on the bat meetings that I zoomed in on, it's been a while now on some of these, they had these kind of folks at their bats, and none of them were prohibited. It wasn't like one guy, he's got the contract. No, they're there. They're not going to wade into something they don't want to do and that is cost prohibitive and beyond their technical means. But if they can get a piece of it and they're motivated, they'll at least know what we're talking about. So
They're all stakeholders.
they all are. And it was pretty good at, okay, so what was I, okay. And funding strategies, that's a big thing, because whether we get mostly grant funded to do this, or we have to use our ARPA money primarily to get this started, we need to have a funding roadmap, because we don't, we're just not gonna have amount of money we can always put aside for this in any sizable portion that I anticipate, unless we are the recipient of some appropriate levels of funding. And so in talking to and providing something like this to Malheur County, my comment is each county will need to assess its budget and determine how to fund their share of the initial work. And now here's where I will put an update on what I'm going to make all those calls about the grants.
I think what is going. Because I can get satellite broadband, quote unquote, to eastern or southeastern Oregon as quick as that. They call it broadband.
Yeah,
What
definitions
parameters,
for,
How many megabytes per second, whatever
Yeah,
defines what is broadband.
Qualifies
right now-
for funding.
yeah, I mean, and then,
I've got direct line satellite through my way for snail speed. Is kind of like the broadband.
if I really need to see something and I
Did
have
you
to do
say
it from
was
home,
100 up and 25 down was their goal,
I think so.
Something like
And I
that.
think I have 25 and 3 if I'm lucky.
and I have 25 and 4 at my
Where I
house.
live.
I have a satellite system, without naming names. But even that, I only get 60 or 70.
Is
Which
that right?
is still not a
And-
hundred,
and
which
I think
is
about
what they're talking.
13, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just in one place that's got one little high point that keeps, I do my wave,
Yes, If we,
direct
if
shot
we
to
do
crane
work or-
retransmission.
that,
and it's
does
what
it
it
not
is.
qualify though, or their funding, won't cover it if it's not there?
Right.
'Cause we'd
Exactly.
hate to get
There's-
bit in the butt.
There's all, this
Right.
is not a quick project, believe me,
Oh,
but
no.
on behalf of our people, we need to do our part.
Well, explore what is available, what is eligible, what is not, what's currently being provided, what is not.
So I'll add some language more about, we should seek funding immediately
Well, and
for
what-
any grants to help us.
What's
with what we're
Representative
proposing.
Marsh's angle with the legislative process? Are they going to be providing a bill that covers some of these initial,
Yeah,
startups?
Which in her presentation at the next CRT meeting, if she doesn't cover that, those will be good questions
right.
for her.
Well, I'll continue with what is going to be tweaked for presenting and providing Malheur County with something. Did
I
you want to
agree
say?
I agree that a partnership with Malheur County could cost-wise benefit both of us. If we go at it, each of us individually, and try to, whatever route it is, whatever technology it is of getting the initial source of broadband to that area would be cheaper. Would be cheaper for both of us to do it together than individually.
Well, yes, because
Ideally.
from here till you get to Vale, they're kind of similar, with what we're talking about in our areas and et cetera. There's
get
differences,
to-
but
Jordan Valley
Well,
and.
and Gentura's in Malheur County, but it's closer to,
yeah,
here than
I mean,
there. And
we're all
so-
in this together and. Right. So what I had said, but now I'll be adding some of this stuff. Each county will need to assess its budget and determine how to fund their share of the initial work. Grants, blah, blah, blah. I'll put something once I have some more information. I recommend Harney and Malheur counties each plan to budget approximately $200,000 to secure 1 year of BAT services, 6 months of pre-engineering and grant analysis services, and an additional year of potential grant writing services. Now that's me winging this based on conversations. I don't really know. So then I said, estimating fees for the services prior to going out for bid is an uncertain endeavor. Conversations with other counties and consultants led to the following estimates. One, a 2-county, primarily rural broadband action team, 1 year, about 100,000. That'd be outreach meetings, updates, reports, social media liaison, et cetera. Pre-engineering design and grant analysis. So a design and some analysis as to which grants are a fit. Not sure, maybe 6 months, might be a little longer. Could be $150,000 to $200,000 to get that done. I'm guessing based on asking a lot of questions, and sometimes people tell me and sometimes they don't. And that would be broadband status, options, recommendations, financial analyses, eligible grants, pre-engineering designs, and ISP connecting with ISP providers. And then grant writing services, maybe the second year, I don't know, 50,000 each county, just in case we have to put up match or higher for 1 or 2 grants that are worth going after. It's just
Do you
too
know
tech.
if there's any match required currently with any of the funding that's out there?
I do not know yet. So I'll go ahead and make some more calls and stuff, but I'd like to get this to them pretty soon, so they can be thinking about it. If they had, if it hasn't been too much on their radar, then they'll need to.
Well, and even if they could consider attending our CRT meeting in some form,
I
would
was-
be
Zooming in.
very beneficial if we're looking at, partnering with them, and if Representative Marsh is gonna be at that meeting, they really should be in the.
Is she
room.
gonna be zooming in or be
Apparently.
there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay. And I will, like 2 years ago at AOC conference, she was one of the panel speakers for broadband at that time, I remember. And I'm sure by now she has a lot of answers.
Years of.
Oh,
It's very-
Yeah.
it's been an area of focus for her, I know that, but I have not engaged with her except when I was in person with her.
So what's the next CRT?
First Wednesday in
February first,
So be the
February
third.
1st.
5:30.
Couple weeks out.
I mean, I'll spend the next 2 days making these calls to,
When did they meet next?
I don't know, I'll have to look at that, but I
I mean,
wanted
they
to.
could
I
attend our
want to talk
meeting.
to us first, and if you say,
Right. No, I'm.
let's at least see if,
supportive.
I mean, I think regionalization for these two counties would make sense.
I
Grant
think
County is on
entertaining
another
the
path, that's why we didn't include. I mean, they've already are doing some
Well, they're
things
so
and
different in their rural landscape.
They
than
are.
Our rural landscape.
And the
We
fact
are
that
more comparable.
Mal
to
here is where we
Malcare.
are right now. Well, we're a little ahead of them because I'm starting to focus on it, but they aren't focused on it yet. But I think with laying something out, they may. And if they zoom into the CRT meeting, that would be awesome because then they'll hear with their own ears what we're going to hear that night.
So will this white paper to Malheur County, will it require our signatures on it?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
this is just
Yeah.
a matter of want
Engage.
everyone
begin,
to be
okay.
fully supportive before I do any
Yeah,
of that.
an MOU would, you know,
That,
be where we.
that's when we wish.
Officially signs.
So I would say pursue, continue on.
Okay, I will be calling them again before I send an email with it and, you know, have some of that conversation and invite them to call me anytime and find out when their next county court meetings and what, and talk, I'll tell them about the CRT and all that. And,
So I was gonna say, it might be CRTs a couple weeks out. At least preliminarily talking with them, getting a draft of this white paper to
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Just so that they can start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then invite them to the CRT meeting as well to hear what's said and help fill in the gaps for them a little bit.
Well, and if Judge Joyce doesn't have the capacity to do it, you know, we need. to
Which commissioner?
Determine who,
of their commission.
commissioner, staff, whatever, you know, their preference is, who will be, you know, trying to pull the weight with you. on their
Right,
side.
because I don't really know the commissioners there and I don't know how they work as far as division of labor. Like we always kind of just agree
Their
to,
chairs is new too, isn't it?
yes, one is newly elected and the other has, I
Ron
think,
Jacobs.
has
is the
been
other.
there for 2 years. And actually Ron was at the emergency management for elected officials thing that I went to here in Harney County last year. He was one of the people there and he was pretty new, but I haven't worked with him. So, but I can tell it will probably be one of the commissioners rather than Judge Joyce. He's got a lot on his plate, I think, as they all do.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the research.
Thank you
and,
for your comments and improvements. I haven't had to write anything in a long time.
Not since COVID,
Yeah.
right?
Not since the reopening plan.
Before you would send off any kind of a draft to Malheur County, if you'd send us copies, just so we know what we're
Sure.
what the baseline.
Then you can hear the-
communication is.
The changes will do. Actually, I have hard copy in case you,
Okay.
that you can, if you think of something and then you, before I even give you the revision and you go, what about this? You can text or email me.
And have you visited directly with Jessica Keys at all
On broadband?
regarding this?
No,
Okay.
I have
Just
communicated her
her
recently on something else. and
emails, you know, that she mentioned.
I will
about
add her to
that.
who I'm gonna call about that. That's good.
You know, if we're looking at some direct asks that they would be submitting, you know, would this be one of those
Well, at the-
asks?
I would think at the national level, the federal level, those funds may be contained in the infrastructure bill or in the Inflation Reduction
So
Act.
they might know how to direct their thing to tapping in, you know, if there's something outside of the 5 million that the state received, if there's any direct way to acquire anything.
I sure hope so, because that $5 million broadband equity access and
For a
deployment planning
state?
grant, where you have to do the planning for you here, and we need some of that. So
That sounds like funding for the state level.
I
And then
know.
all the counties are gonna be on their own.
I know, that's what I'm concerned with, but you're
Or
right.
have to go apply on their own to access.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you all. This gave me some good direction.
Yeah, Ben's office do the same. He's let's say Sage will be meeting with us next week, so we can bring that up.
Is that Monday? Is he coming Monday?
The 20.
Well, we can do it on schedule.
Yeah.
We can.
So, again, thank you very much for the work you've put into that.
Welcome.
We didn't have any water notice business for this week.
That's a good sign.
And I am still, I have under general discussion, deliberation, whatever, but I need to get in touch with Cindy for the website. And that's something I can talk to
Oh.
her about as far as putting that website address on there and locating it on the website somewhere so that we don't have to deal with that on our agendas.
So how many things I have for general deliberations today, guys?
And,
It won't take long.
as I looked at it, you know, honestly, everything she has on there except for the NRAC opening shouldn't be on there. Like, it's all old, it's stuff that I'd asked her to take down that's still up. I
Are
think.
we in general deliberations now or just whatever?
So, no public waters, notices. The only thing I have for the next correspondence is, a letter from the Department of the Interior. Dear interested public, the courtesy letter serves as a notice to internet, see, and I'm not sure this was not a typo, but it says internet availability that the Malheur Field Office, Vale District Burns has completed a final environmental assessment, EA, finding no significant impact, and this is for a horse gather coming up, is really all this boils down to, but it's just their notice that they did the NEPA for a upcoming horse gather, and they signed what they call a FONSI, finding of no significant impact, and that just pushes them along in their planning process for conducting a horse gather.
But it doesn't say, is that just for the summer?
This
Gather.
document can be found at the name of the dog, 3 Fingers and Jackie's Butte herd management areas. Which 3 Fingers, if that's where I'm thinking, is out of, it's actually in Malheur County, I believe. I think both of these herd management areas are in Malheur County, but because we're neighboring and. So there was that, and then, kind of a summary of 2022 from,
Oh, yeah, I got.
High
that.
Desert Partnership.
Did you get one in your inbox, Farley?
Oh, did you get?
I got one too. I got the big
Alright.
envelope with it.
And,
What's for there too?
New Year card. Yeah. So,
That'll be with yours as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got one if we got.
so that's all I had for correspondence this week.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then that, scheduling, next item, next county court will be February 1st, 10 a.m. And February 15th. No deviations.
Yeah, so our meeting with Sage is Monday, the 23rd at 10 o'clock is what I have on my calendar. Is that whatever?
23rd.
23rd at 10 here.
Yes.
I don't have my phone with Congressman Bence's
Staff,
Staff.
region.
You want that on the.
Um,
Put that on the agenda in the meetings.
no,
No, that's more,
it's more like.
Yeah.
an internal calendar.
Okay, good.
So after scheduling, late items already took care of general deliberation by the court.
So with that meeting, though, he did ask if there was any other community partners we wanted to invite to the meeting. I have not invited anybody at this point. I don't know. Yeah, you've reached
Well,
out to
the-
any of the city managers.
Do we-
or-
I haven't,
Okay.
but I will. I have begun, regular meetings, luncheon
So you
meetings
mentioned
with the city managers to include tribal administrator. I think our efforts and what we do in Burns and Hines in the county and the tribal leadership all affect each other, so.
More communication.
Yeah. So we have another one of those scheduled for February. In the month of February, I don't remember the date now. But if it's before, well, even if it's not before that, I will send out a message to them asking if they would be interested in attending meeting with Congressman Ben's staff. And, I haven't seen an agenda on that. Do we have an agenda on that?
Whatever we.
He
agree.
usually wants to know what's on our minds. It's,
So having that in mind, would it be beneficial then for our CRT?
Well, that's, I was gonna mention that, even just to listen in. to
Yeah,
get
well, yeah.
familiar with some of the conversations we do tend to have with the congressional staffs that we meet with. That is what-
February 23rd, 10 a.m. Here at the courthouse.
And then, other staff that we'll meet with, Merkley's office will often, schedule something with us throughout the year, and Jessica usually comes down. We have not had contact with writing staff in some time. I would love for you to reach out to them as a new face and see if they would come and meet with us.
well, as a matter of fact, I sent a letter, an email to Jessica, Jacob, and Sage, and on a topic that I just at least wanted you to hear about. Yes, I used red and bold on a couple places also. I must not have had coffee yet. This is on the topic of TRICARE pharmacy reduction in coverage, which is a federal thing, but I'm aware of it. I've had a couple of people ask me about it, and I looked into it. And so I said, I sent them each a separate one. Here's what I've learned about veterans TRICARE pharmacy benefits issues so far. The Defense Health Agency contracted with a different TRICARE pharmacy provider called Express Scripts to provide TRICARE pharmacy prescription benefits to veterans and their qualifying family members. Apparently, after being awarded the contract, Express Scripts made internal business and negotiation decisions last summer/early fall that resulted in a 33% reduction in network coverage to the beneficiaries across the United States. The issue is both small business pharmacies and also some of the large retail chains. Several large retail pharmacy chains such as Kroger, Walmart, that provided TRICARE coverage were dropped by Express Scripts, and this is also putting many Americans without on-site in-person pharmacy coverage. I believe Express Scripts does provide mail order services, but is not user-friendly in their reimbursement processing, and this forces out-of-pocket payments when people become ill and need immediate prescription treatments and post-surgical medications, which are very costly. Many of the customers have life-threatening illnesses and need continuous pharmacy support. Just last week, I read that about a third of the dropped pharmacy sites, why just a third, are being allowed to reconsider recontracting with Express Scripts, but on disadvantaged terms. It is wrong to boost the financial bottom line of Express Scripts and the Defense Health Agency while reducing coverage, convenience, and cost to our veterans and their families. So I said 33% reduction in network coverage. This is unacceptable and inhumane. 22%, let's say a third of them are back in it. 22% reduction in network coverage is still unacceptable and inhumane. Please let me know how the senator or the representative may be able to change this, as the Defense Health Agency is undoubtedly a federal entity. The impact of TRICARE beneficiaries is huge. We ask for full restoration of network levels of coverage, and I feel very strongly about that, and that's why I wrote it from me, not from the county court,
Have
but
you had any
nevertheless,
response at this point?
Jessica is the only one so far. I just sent it yesterday morning. It's not printed out here, but she said, thank you, Commissioner. I will take it right to our veterans and health staff. So she responded right away. Haven't heard yet from Sage or Jacob. And so thank you. I just want you to be aware of that. And we have, a veteran service officer, but doesn't do the health stuff so much as the other benefits and stuff. So I did some Google searches and stuff. I had already heard stuff. It was part of a conversation at the NACO Veterans and Military Services meeting that prompted me to start deciding, all right, I've heard a couple of things now, I'm going to look into it. And I included my update as of the day I wrote this, because there were some things in the news about, well, now there's been a little bit pressure, but still not this, that, and the other. So
I think the thing that leads to, though, is through CIS, and assume it's CIS, who we get health insurance from the county uses Express Scripts. And so
Yes.
you don't have to, but I know they're always sending me mailings trying to get me to run their prescriptions through Express Scripts instead of my
really?
local pharmacy.
Yeah.
And so there's some tie to even Express Scripts to what the county provides for their employees. And so, you know, if we have folks that were using it and now coverage has been cut or, you know, in other areas.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know if, you know, there's other people being affected, you know, beyond just the veterans contract.
On Terry Hellbush's request to Terry Hellbush, I guess she had just sent it to me. Good morning. Oh, you got to, okay. So the next meeting for the Eastern Oregon Workforce Board is going to be an in-person board retreat, April 18th. So April. Aaron Carpenter is the new director. One big item they're going to discuss is daycare. I think there's a huge need for this in Harney County. Not sure if there's any Harney County funds for me to attend. I think there probably are. We're probably talking about 1 or 2 nights at the most in a motel and mileage and possibly a meal or two. I'll find out
It'd
more.
be interesting to know, when you talk about daycare though, I believe, Donna Snicker was working
Schnicker.
on a bunch of stuff with that, you know, it'd be, interesting to know, yeah,
I'll have Terry interact with her.
if Terry already interacts with her on that board or who are other local folks that are on that.
And see,
make
I-
sure everybody's working
that's
together
good.
in the same direction.
I attend the
when it
early
comes to
learning
that.
hub meetings by Zoom, and that's what you're talking about. Yeah, they do
Yeah,
that.
I've heard them
Right.
talk about daycare and
And-
making some grant funds available to train people to do it and things, so,
New laws.
yeah.
So,
So where does that intersect?
So are
That's
you-
already going on.
Should I just tell her likely she would be able to, and she can,
I
Or
would
do you want me
say,
to wait?
like you say, a couple nights of lodging is $300 and meals and fuel, $600 trip.
maybe.
Right now, I'm gonna say, you know, this is a little fluid, but as of right now, line item, actual $7,400 has been spent in lodging and travel, meals and travel, with a total of 15,000 budgeted. My trips, you know, 5 trips for county college. Probably about the same thing, you know, maybe 700 a trip and times 5, 3,500. That's 10, that's still $5,000 left over.
And I will ask her to please get on the agenda after that to brief us on everything. I know she's been quietly attending these, and I've occasionally interacted with her to say what's new. And then when Eastern Oregon Workforce Board came to some kind of Ford family thing, I made it a point to come and visit with them. And I met Aaron. The other guy just retired, but yeah, I'm glad Terry is still engaging. I just haven't had her.
So besides daycare, what else are they teaching?
Well, they usually engage on the WorkSource Oregon processes. You know, we have a WorkSource Oregon. The things about what kind of jobs are out there, are the processes user-friendly to those seeking, are there barriers to workforce issues related to the state funding that they give people not to work, et cetera, you know, and to just not need to work, those type of things. But these workforce boards do not get a lot of money from the state to do much. I've been very disappointed that at the state level as they do all these fancy studies on artificial intelligence careers and things like that, but almost nothing applies to us out here, which, you know, we could use the help, but usually they don't do daycare per se as a focus, but maybe that's a focus area now. And that may end up someday being a focus area a little bit for CRT. You know, CRT is a great umbrella because so much all affects economic development, right? And I know you know a lot about that stuff, but
I know for a number of years, we only have one state certified, health care person in Harney. It's a Smith. There was no other, and 5 years, she was the only.
the only what?
state certified daycare service.
Oh.
And
It's the requirements to be state certified are there's just so many things. It's hard for anyone to want to be state certified because they have little time to do the daycare if they're go jumping through all those wickets all the time.
Well, part of it too is the provider, the care provider per child, dependent on age ratios.
Right.
And by the time you fill up that ratio is 4 to 1, I think in some in infants or something like that. But by the time you fill that ratio up, you have to hire so many staff.
How do you
To
keep
make
it
it-
economical for
Yeah.
families and needs?
It doesn't pencil out. It just doesn't.
And I know Amy Dobson also mentioned something to me about the kids club looking at, as they are able to build on to be able to provide those services. So she might be someone Terry should reach out to prior to going to that meeting to try to find out what their conversations have been and if they still have that as a goal, if they have a timeline associated with it.
And I'm sure she probably has, but the workforce coordinator is Mr. McKay, will you?
Yeah.
Here in town,
Yeah.
Guy McKay,
He's the work source Oregon.
or
Yeah.
WorkSource.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure she's probably talked to him, but
Yeah. I'll mention all these
Just in
people to
case.
her.
Yeah, just make sure that
That she's
sometimes
she's been in touch with all these people before she goes there and she can, bring comments to the table. Yeah. Great. Let's see. These are in no particular order. So I had emailed Cindy Lofts, our webmaster, and asked, I just said, might be a good time to have an update with county judge on board. And I said, I may have missed meetings. Would you please make sure I'm aware of the next meeting? And she said, well, I haven't really had one in a while. And I said, when I'm at general deliberations, what are some dates that might work for you? So I have a few dates if you want to see if they would even work. If not, she will continue to find a time to do a Zoom meeting with us and give us an update. So if you want to look at your calendars real quick.
Well, and I think with the email, did you have Tammy send out the email saying that the .gov would be ready?
Yes, it went out.
I didn't. Somebody.
Someone
had to
sent it out.
But it's,
Okay. I thought maybe.
March,
she was just
March.
recipient like everybody else.
Okay.
I heard
March
Jared.
13th, I believe.
Yeah.
I wonder if Jeremy is still around.
Well, I mean, I'll go see if he's available.
If he
and I'm
is,
gonna
it'd
try-
be curious to know if he told her or if that was a DAG thing. Who instigated that email? It wasn't me.
Well, what had happened, what might have instigated that is Tammy Adelberger had emailed me, or she had sent out the phone list. And I don't know, I emailed her back about it. And then she said,
Everybody's gone to lunch.
Tammy had said, do you want me to order you some? Do you need new business cards? And I said, well, no, I said, aren't our emails going to change sometime? And so, no, don't order me any new
Well,
ones till that
I
happens.
was like, if we could only order 50, sure, but they come in orders of 250 through our current provider that we use. But then Suzanne Settle was there and she's like, well, I use Vistaprint and I can get them for dirt cheap compared to that and do it in whatever quantity.
When I was campaigning, I
So
did
I'm
my
like,
own Canva
oh.
cards, and if I can do it, anybody can do it, because
So
I'm
like,
not very good. They were pretty cheesy.
Maybe we need to do some more temporary cards with updated phone numbers in a smaller quantity, but I certainly don't need 250.
But it was after
cards
that-
with a
It was after
old
that,
email on it.
2 days later, that email came out about when it's gonna change, so I didn't know if my inquiry to her.
Well, I'd
Prompted some
stirred the
discussion.
pot on it with Jeremy 2 weeks ago, and he was reaching out to Brad, his boss, to find out what dates are available for Brad to be available for that change. And so my assumption is that Brad got back to him, but I'd been CC'd on that email, but never got a response. And so unless he and Brad talked directly and then.
Okay, so what dates are we looking at?
All right, first one is January 24th from 9 to 10. You're gonna have a department head meeting, so that wouldn't work, probably.
Well, I'm not. I'm still trying to nail down a date. There's
Okay,
some other conflicts that have come up with the Tuesdays.
another date is January 26th, noon to 2. And then the third one she offered was February 2nd, 11 to 2. So I don't know if any of those are no-goes for you.
26th, if it's afternoon, I have a Burns LIT meeting from 9 to noon, but then after that I am open,
Till when?
9 to noon.
Okay, so
and then
you
I'm
could
open
maybe,
Till the full collaborative meeting at 5.
okay, so you could maybe do that one.
Would you say the 26th?
Yeah, is that
I'm-
good?
That works good for me. Okay, I told her I'd get back to her if we have some kind of, so why don't I go ahead and get back to her on that, and
January
it'll be
26th,
a
noon
Zoom
to-
meeting. Yeah,
Noon to, about how long?
noon to 2 or less if you don't need it that long.
Yeah,
but-
typically we haven't, if she can give us an update and we can make sure that Jeremy's available and DAG is usually set in on those.
Okay.
I don't know, we can look back over the list to see who else have been.
The
attending.
Roxanne and all them, I don't know who all needs, I haven't been coming to each one because I gave my 2 cents and I'm.
I think
so-
we were kind of waiting to see when she would have it ready and when the .gov could be ready so that we can try to
Implement it at the same time.
make chaos all at once.
Thank you. We have a public health van or a van, medical van. And I'm just throwing this out just for your general awareness is because that ARPA reminded me of it when I saw that on there. It's like at least initially for the first few months, and I don't know now, it wasn't being used much because they didn't exactly know all
I
the
have
little.
Not heard of any utilization
And
of it
I
at this
mean,
point.
it
I
was a
heard that
lot
it
of
wasn't,
money and.
Organized properly with something internally and.
And then there was hurt feelings amongst, and that needs to be lined out and used as a good resource, in my opinion. So that's just something for down the road.
Figure it out.
RV park,
If not, go drive it around the county once in a while, if nothing
It
else.
was
so that
supposed-
the-
it was a
Whose
public-
initiative
it was
that?
public health or RHC, but sort
that
of
was our
public health
previous-
and,
Director.
Previous.
Yeah.
Nick
and
instigated that, but there wasn't a good,
I mean, it took them forever just to get decal signs on it. I mean, it
Well, to
wasn't
get-
really used as a high priority. They used it to park in a parking lot and let people come and get COVID test kits and stuff. They did that kind of thing. But it has, infrastructure in it for medical stuff. I mean, you could do that out of a truck, if you're just gonna pass out testing kits.
well, that was the original deal, is that they would schedule days throughout the county to take it out and provide services and get on a schedule. For
That's-
that, but that's never.
A
came
pu-
to
a public health
fruition.
director could figure out the good uses, let all of our health agencies, be able to request usage of it and make that work. But when something just sits unused, it deteriorates. So that was just a thought.
On that topic, I had sent out a copy of the position job description for the public health director vacancy. And I think I had on there by the end of this week.
By the 23rd.
Yeah. And, so it is my intent to bulletin that position.
So would we be able to maybe after we meet with Sage, spend some time with our edits?
Yeah,
Would that be a
Yeah.
possibility?
Yeah.
Because I'm planning on tomorrow sitting down with some staff to help inform some of my edits. But I'd like to
the only thing I have on the
make sure that we.
I have on the 23rd is the EOCA monthly meeting. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. And then that morning at 10 is when we're with Sage DeLong.
Correct.
Yeah, those are the same 2 things I have. So did you want to?
If we could do it after we're done with Sage, if that works for everybody.
How long do those usually last?
And it just depends on how much information that we have to share.
my comments are always my general comments. I don't.
I'll take
With
up about
natural
20
resources, she usually has a couple on the and I'll follow up on the
Well-
TRICARE. I just have a hodgepodge of things I touch base with them and tell
I've
them.
already been in contact with them prior because it was something that could be.
I mean, I'll be honest, being new, I'm gonna be listening and kind of trying to decipher what kind of information is usually discussed at those, so I probably will.
Because because he's federal, then we have to try to remember to focus on the federal level things. That's why natural resources is a really good fit. That's why in this case, the veterans thing is a fit. A lot of well, there's broadband. Broadband can be a topic, we just. You don't need to prepare for it so much but now that he's coming, you might think of a couple of things.
So tentatively 11:30ish.
That would work.
I'm sorry to have so many, but it's just a great opportunity to get all this stuff out there. I saw, Judge, that you put out, notice for the elected official compensation board, so that was good. You getting any nibbles, or they?
Nothing yet, and I need to try and get it out a little bit broader, and actually I had some email traffic with Cindy about getting it put on our webpage. And then potentially in the newspaper as well, so I get a little broader coverage with it. Versus just social media.
Right, on the Terry Helbush had also emailed us about the Historic Society Museum and the flooding and the snow removal stuff.
I don't know that I've. When did she do that?
The 10th. Do you want to read these? Here.
I have not seen that. Let me see if I can find her email.
But I have not replied to her on any of that. It was an ask. First, she was letting us know a situation, and luckily, so.
Oh, okay, I did see that.
Okay.
Never mind. I was thinking
So it
my
was-
other email.
I thought it
He
was,
didn't include me on the other email though.
which one? Not the Eastern Oregon Workforce
Okay.
Board, but on
Yeah,
the,
I did see that
on
one.
this, it was great that Eric sent someone up to remove the snow, Eric Trishella. But the historical museum, who does that building belong to?
Them.
Okay.
It's their property.
And again, I care, but we can't be
Well.
propping up the
sounds like
nonprofits.
We shoved snow.
We created it.
On them.
Yeah, we created the issue in that one because they were plowing the parking lot, the library parking lot, pushing the snow towards them, which would have created a.
Yeah, and
But-
so when she asked for funding, I would have to say. We're in the same
Well,
bind as with the other request, except that,
The funding was for the fence
yeah,
that they're building around that open air area. To protect their artifacts and whatnot, and that's where they were asking for the funding, which is about $10,000 if I recall.
that's what she had, yeah, almost
and-
11,000.
And I run into the same situation, as with the. Opportunity team.
Exactly.
Run into the same situation as the opportunity team, and while we're partners in a way, but we just don't have that money line item and budgeted for to assist.
And we provide so much in-kind support to the museum via the library employee who is doing all their cataloging of their stuff. Pardon me?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, she's still doing.
Yes, last I heard.
I don't know.
Another conversation.
But at any rate, we like to help where we can, but I just don't see where we can write a check that way. Were you gonna reply to her or?
Yeah, I need to get back to her on it, but I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a conversation with us.
I know
before
what,
I did.
I touched base with her. I said, Terry, you're on the budget board, you know what we have. I said, why don't you look through all the funds and tell us where you think we might be able to find the money rather than can we have it? I said, because I looked and I am not finding it, but I said, you have a lot of familiarity with it. I said, so if you would do that, please. And haven't heard back yet, but again, if there's a little nugget that we're not gonna use this year and we think this is that important, but it's a bad practice to try to engage in with our,
Well, and that's why I asked, if they had received the pot of money that was available to all businesses to apply for those funds and everybody. that's,
exactly.
And so they did receive some ARPA funds previous. So it's not that they hadn't been able to access any of the funds that the rest of the community was able to apply
Yeah.
for and
And I
access.
didn't know they had that opportunity either.
They did.
So-
Pete sat on that committee that helped decide who, but they didn't turn anyone down. And so any business that applied and said, this is my lost revenue, they were awarded
Was
some
that-
portion of funds. I don't know where that, Pete would have a record of it somewhere. It wasn't something we
Yeah,
ever
he
received a record
kept a
of.
list and told us that who sat down
Was
together and made that
Was that
decision.
through ARPA?
No, it was some of
a
the
different
other
ARPA
fundings that the
pot.
feds were putting out for COVID. I mean, small, like our Economic Development Office and Ms. Latham, what's her name? Andrea,
Andrea.
Small
was on
Business
it, I
Development Board,
believe.
they were very helpful during COVID as to finding out all the ways you could apply. I remember getting hold of Becky Cunningham and said, you need to apply. She said, oh no, I said, you need to apply, do it. And she got $5,000.
Yeah, most of them received.
There was a
$5,000.
fairly large window where
And-
everybody
and
could
the
apply
chief
for
did
almost
say that
anything.
They did receive some. They chose to use it for a
For
specific
technology.
purpose for technology. But
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt to ask, but
it's
We have
not
to be
that they,
consistent.
it's not that they didn't receive any, is what I wanted to make sure to highlight in bringing that up.
okay. I almost saved the best for last before Kristen gets to say whatever she wants to. Okay. Got a text yesterday from Deschutes County Commissioner Patty Adair. Out of the blue, just a short one. And it says, does your waste station have capacity for Deschutes landfill? I thought I knew the answer, but I just thought instead I said, I will bring this question to County Court General deliberations tomorrow. I believe Lake County has engaged in having some of their land designated to be a landfill, and they're doing it as a business, but I could be wrong.
Doesn't Gillum County do that?
Yes.
In Nevada, where I previously lived, the county, it's on private. I wasn't sure if it was public or private. I know there are ways for public lands to be used for landfills, and I need to research that with the district manager out here in Burns District. But even if not, if there was some private, and again, these might be reasons why all this property that we have
Might
here
be
and there,
suitable to something.
that we might be able to make some trades here and there and acquire a chunk. But anyway, this landfill in Nevada it's in Lincoln County. And Clark County, Las Vegas, brought all their waste up to that. And it was a very big revenue source for Lincoln County.
It
It's what
was.
keeps Gillum afloat.
Is it?
Did the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did not
So
call
it is-
Patty and follow up. I just wanted to pass it on and then.
And I
ask
knew that
what-
Deschutes County, one thing that kind of spurred my thinking on this was I knew that the landfill for Deschutes County, it's on the southeast corner. If you do the bypass, as you're coming into Benton, you take the bypass and go all the way around the southeast side of town and connect back out with Highway 97, you go right past it.
Oh,
I can't think of the name of it, but I've been, huh?
KNOTT.
Knots. Yeah. So, and I had heard that they were starting to get to their capacity on that, and therefore then there might be a good, yeah.
So what would you like me to tell her?
What's their maximum limits? I mean, you can't tell them that you can do it if their maximum weight limit, they can't be over 105,000. Because that's the maximum weight limit.
We don't have any area designated as such, or our landfills sufficiently designated. If we were going to do
Yeah,
that.
All
that I'm
good
aware of.
questions.
Yeah,
Why don't I just say,
we don't have
the
it.
answer is no, but if you want to send me a copy of any contract your
Or
county
we'd
is
be
done
open
with
to a
it,
Conversation.
we can learn more about this since we don't, all right, I'll do that. Okay,
Sorry.
I'm finished. I just want to know how January 16th Fair Board meeting went.
Oh, it went good. There was, 3, companies that submitted RFPs.
Proposals.
After they were reviewed by the fair board and myself, and the fair manager, she is at a conference, by the way, but she'll be back tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, good. I'm glad she went to that conference.
There was one that was moved forward to ask, some further questions, just for clarification, and then they're planning on getting on the agenda for the first to bring, that forward once she's back and able to reach out and ask the questions that
They, the fair board or
They-
or the person submitting them?
the fair board, in their RFP, they had some questions, and so they were the only ones that actually, fully, out of the 3 applicants, one didn't actually complete all the requested information for the RFP. The other one had no experience in the particular type of building. His expertise was more in landscaping. The third company that they want to ask some more questions to.
Can I help you?
Am I bothering you? Do you know where I go to get an eviction notice?
Justice Court,
Okay, upstairs?
just, yeah, upstairs
you.
and to the left.
And so, they had some questions that they wanted to ask. Or have answered, and so she's gonna reach back out to them. Find out some question and answer, and then. Bring that decision forward to the court on the first and get on their agenda. And then their fair board meeting is the 6th, so, the other thing that. We discussed is we've had 2 applicants come in. I'm sure you saw in the paper that we posted.
Oh,
The vacancy for the fair board.
Secretary
Uh,
or the part-time position?
We had 2 applicants also for the secretary position, and Lindsay selected one of them, and so that individual was actually there on the 16th to take minutes for us. That's Kelly Frank, who is going to be the secretary.
Has she not been in her old job for a long time? I
No,
never
she
took her
hasn't
to-
for a while.
Oh,
She
okay. I
stepped
didn't-
away from that to have more time with her kids, and
Okay.
and so that is taken place. She's been hired. She's already provided the minutes to Lindsay from the meeting. So Lindsay knew what she now needed to go do. But there's been 2 applications that I'll get on our agenda for a meeting on the 1st for approval for a fair board member. I did share those with the fair board just to get some input. And they did have a recommendation of one of those individuals that they felt like would be.
And how many for
best
that,
fit.
did you say?
There was 2.
There were
that
2.
And do they
submitted
have
at this
some-
point, but I propose, I'm not gonna close it until our meeting on the 1st, that
Right.
if we get any more between now and then, that they could also be considered, but. At that point, I'll make sure to provide that information. Have on our agenda.
And how's the community-based water planning going?
We'll meet on the, what did I tell you, the 26th, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's going well. The working groups are meeting on a regular basis. I attended the surface water management working group yesterday. That was a very productive meeting. We're starting to get a few more community members, not necessarily, there is some new community members attending the main collaborative meeting, but some of these separate working groups, we've been able to get a few more community members to engage in some of that. And so that's been, to me, a big positive, because I think all of our concerns always that, this plan gets written, but the community wasn't really involved. It's just agency folks and people that are paid to be in the room. So it's nice to see a few more engaging. And I think as it moves forward, we might see a little more of that. As
Are they
things
people
progress.
that are, as the term goes, people that are actually down the ditch?
Stakeholders, yeah, that have water rights. Yeah. And then the other update, water wise, Mark and I have a regular meeting now with OWRD monthly. where we're discussing the updates on the Division 10 rules as well as the Division 512. The Division 512 is the Harney Basin specific rules. And we're looking at potentially by March, getting that underway and moving forward. So there will be a lot of community engagement that'll be taking place around that.
When you say by March, you mean Harney County's perspective or
No,
state level?
having meetings in our community about Division 5.
Who will be holding them?
OWRD. We did put in a request with them to provide us money for a facilitator, or at least let us partner in that, not us, but High Desert Partnership has some resources and an individual that has been engaged in those type of conversations as a third party coordinator for some of that. And so they're considering it at this point. They didn't give us a total nod, but they said maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea. So, you know, we think that it's going to be such a big conversation. What basin specific rules should be, but it would be nice to have kind of a third party involved in that to help make sure that folks are all included and that, you know, you have a little bit of a neutrality in that person. And so, you know, we all believe that some of the circles that will be drawn as far as regulation areas will be contested legally. There's at least 2 of them that, you know, we believe will end up in the court system. The third, with the current measurements that are coming out, may or may not need to be drawn on the map. So all still in motion. Representative Owens has a lot of water bills in the works, and I think we're starting to actually look at water differently within the state of Oregon, which is about time. But for our community, it's 20 years later than it should have been.
What are some of the key, I won't get into it too much, but on the surface water management aspect, what are some the main things about who
Right now,
gets
it's
to
the
manage?
Step 2, the state manages. You know, it's all by decree. There's no water in the county that isn't surface water in the county that isn't already have a water decree attached to it.
Okay.
And so it's up to WRD to manage according to the decree. Some of the decrees are insufficient as far as the amount of water, because they are assumed to be a March to October water season, which if we had that, the amount of water would potentially be okay. But at 1/80th, and you get all your water in a very short 3-week period to, if you're lucky, a 7-week period. It's a totally insufficient number that's within the decree, and so it makes for water management decisions that have to be different than typically.
Do they get
what you find in
litigated
the decree.
against that much or not? Is surface water litigation and groundwater, is one of them more contentious than the other?
No, they're both contentious.
That's good, yeah. Thank you.
And so that working group is working on kind of the step 2 part of the document. There's a step 2, 3, 4, and 5. Step 2 is looking at the history and, you know, kind of laying what has gone on in the system. Step 3 is looking at what needs to go on in the system in the future. Step 4 is looking at what are some of the issues. And then the step 5 document that's required is what are some potential solutions that we're proposing for the issues indicated in step 4. And
Did you
so they're
both
just
get
in the initial deal.
Did you get this in your
I
box?
did.
Did you?
He's somebody that needs to,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
come and
Yes,
join in
I have a
the
couple copies of it. That's from Mr.
collaborative work. If he
Petrilli,
wants to
yeah.
have a stake in the game, he really needs to bring himself into the room and be a part of things. I can't do anything.
He has, and I told him the same thing after he was out here in the lobby one day. And I told him, I got it. You left me a couple copies. I've got it. I'll read through it. And I said, but you really need to go to to a meeting and present your
The work
ideas,
that
your
you've done.
plans, your proposals. Is the proper place for it, so, is it okay?
I haven't heard anything about him yet, so
Yeah.
if he,
This
if he
was
comes,
just-
that's great.
Yeah, this was just last week, so.
We will wait and see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Just a couple of quick updates, CRT meeting this past 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. They brought up the topic of housing and the housing project or the house project that they all partnered in and built, the county and cities and everybody. With more expressed private interest in housing and construction, development wise. They decided that maybe building another house might not be, yeah, it
Needed
might
right
not be,
now.
instead of being competitive or whatever, it might not be the best use of time and resources.
Mhm.
So the idea or the proposal was floated about maybe finding a house to remodel, flip basically. Take a house that's currently not in that greatest situation
I
and turn
think
it
the
over.
county was trying to sell one.
Well, so as I'm sitting at the table and brainstorm, I said, well, okay, so everybody gives a little is their motto in that group. So I said, well, if the county has a foreclosed property, a residence, then we could donate that residence and become a project residence for this. I mentioned it to Mr. Smith. I told him where the one is, and he was going to drive. Thought he might have been back through here this past Monday. In between having to be back over in Salem, and he was gonna take a look at it. I don't think he made it. But he was gonna start getting the ball rolling and maybe have somebody look at it and see if it's sound enough to be a project or not. If not, then down the road, if we get another one that comes into our possession, and then we can,
Might be not.
yeah.
You know, since you are heading up the CRT, is that correct?
Yeah.
You know what I would appreciate, at least at one of their meetings, it does relate to housing, is City of Burns, what housing initiatives are you involved in? Because, you know, there was a lot for a while there when City Manager Dan Brown was here with Grant County, you know, there was all this stuff. I'd like to hear just, you know, briefly what grants or initiatives at this time for how much, how many, where, is it just like to be aware? Same with City of Hines, and then anything we have, because I don't know, and I can't necessarily go to all their meetings to hear little updates. I just like a 5-minute, you know, and our senior, our Harney hub, you know, the better, what the county has, the better, you know, anything we're doing. So let's just see, because if Governor Kotek's #1 priority is to put money and stuff toward building homes, we need to make sure that we don't jump on a bandwagon we maybe don't need. And which of these housings are middle income housing, since that is our official identified and analyzed need. And just see how we're doing. We might be doing okay, we might not, I don't know, but
I sat next to Judy earlier. She said, the conversation between the two of us, she said their planning commission is working on 2 developments.
I'd like
Housing
that to be
developments.
known, you know, just,
She didn't say anything more than that. I did ask her if there were apartments, and she said no houses.
It's all, there are 2 commercial developments, the Miller Springs development, which I think most of us have probably heard the proposal on. And there's a new proposal that is, but it straddles Burns and Hines. Back kind of behind Rite Aid area there, back in behind that area behind Rite Aid, back in there. Each development,
Behind it?
yeah. Each development together combined is roughly about 300 homes, and it's phased. They're not gonna, and this come out of our last meeting the lunch meeting that I had with the administrators or 2 weeks ago. So it's phased. There are about 300 homes. They're all workforce homes. They're all middle income workforce housing type of projects. So even if, you know, as Kirby Latham, Hines City Administrator, the way he put it, even if a third of the planned stuff that's kind of coming up right now takes place and happens, we'll be in a lot better situation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm thinking maybe the Harney homes, and again, at CRT is the time to discuss it, is not really needed right now, but at least the model has been developed and had one success. And it did 5 years ago, nothing was happening. So, you know, things are.
Well, if you look around, if you drive around Burns and Hines, there's building going on all over the place, whether it's private individual homes that are being built, or a garage or a shop building or an add-on or whatever, there's building
construction.
there's construction taking place.
Are there enough jobs for 300 homes? I mean, I know some
Well,
people
again-
could move here and
But
work
the Forest
remotely.
Service and BLM are down a lot of employees, so if they actually got up to their proposed staffing levels, that would take
Are-
quite a few
what-
homes just to do that.
Why are they down? Because people
Because
won't take the,
people have
the-
chose not to.
Well, it's like everybody, hard to find staff, hard to
Yeah.
find employees,
And
everybody's feeling it.
qualified staff, you know, a lot of theirs do require specific
Degrees.
qualifications, and we are in a remote area. A lot of people come here and then go to somewhere else. Would kind of been a stepping stone place
Yeah.
for a lot of, new employees for them.
So it is phased, and that was one of my concerns about how fast they wanted to build these homes, because I was concerned about a surplus then, and that hurts.
because that's when Multnomah County will send their homeless here is, oh, there's homes. And now,
Yeah.
you know, the state can provide a way to make them, to
No, I
get them
think you
there.
have to have caution and
Yeah.
So
everything.
just
I
so,
think-
yeah, because
Having,
don't want it-
having
don't
some
touch housing.
housing available will help maybe even spur some economic development. But then all the other issues that go along with it, the daycare, and everything else has got to be addressed, because again,
That are unmet.
yes, yeah.
in fact, that was our big, at a CRT meeting 5 years ago, it's like, we know whether it's workforce, having the workforce, having the daycare, having the housing, having the high-speed internet, have all these things that we need to work on, you know, which one to do first, or which two to do first. And it was hard because they're so interconnected, you know. It was
So I-
housing and broadband tended to be or internet. I'm gonna start saying that.
So I very much embraced the idea of flipping a home, whether it's, the contribution from the county is a foreclosed home or whatever. I think taking a home that is not, maybe currently not occupied and.
Currently
and
not
don't you-
desirable.
Yeah, so, but once you remodel it, don't you achieve the same goal? You're creating a residence, a home for somebody then to occupy. As a brand new stick-built home, it's,
If
you're achieving
needed,
the
if
same
someone
goal.
else, if no one's buying it, and no one's gonna buy it, because there's
We don't want
issues.
to leave it on.
But I
windowless.
don't, I don't want to spend too much money on it, doing that, put it that way. If we
Well,
just
if our
donate that,
contribution's the home, then that's where our contribution ends.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, the financing effort. See, and that's another thing though too, for most of this, they have the blueprint already in place by doing this first home that they did. The blueprint is there. The financing options, the construction, the contracting, all that is already in place. So to move into a project home is an easy move. It's an easy step, and you're taking maybe potentially a blighted home, and maybe it's a home. The one that I'm referring to might be in the urban renewal area for Burns.
That they can spend those funds in helping do that
Yes.
because it's within the blight.
So you're checking multiple boxes at once. So I wanted to, on that, another topic obviously was the broadband. We've already covered that. Cindy, the webpage, I have been in touch with her. I sent her the pictures from our oath of office ceremony that we had in our individual county court pictures and whatnot. So she's got all that stuff. Advertising for the elected officials compensation board. I'm talking in circles here, but I've done it in one location. I need to do it in some other locations. Advertising, and I want to get some other stuff out there too as well for the NRAC, the vacancy. Looks like you guys probably potentially have filled the fair board
Yeah, we
vacancy.
do have interest.
And then I heard that there is a vacancy. I need to reach out to planning and find out there was a vacancy on the planning board.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I thought that there had been.
well, you know, that's kind of the
That's what I
department
thought.
head responsibility to try to.
Well, he
Get those
tried, but
filled.
he hadn't had any success, so it might be something as we put more of these out that make sure not to leave any out that are vacant. And I need to review, and this was something I forgot to bring up. I am planning on trying to get a wolf meeting scheduled in the Crane area. There's been wolf activity in the Crane area. We are looking at, and this will be a budgetary situation too, where in order to apply for the compensation funds, so you'll have your wolf committee, but then you also have to set up a compensation committee. There is interest at this point in the community to pursue that. Prior to this time, nobody had been interested in trying to apply for any of those compensation funds. I'll have some further in-depth conversations. I have a lead with a-
Compensation as to the effects of.
applying
of-
for the state
Depredation.
funds for the depredation, and more so than the depredation, the mitigation funds, because you can access the mitigation funds, but you can't access the depredation funds until you've had so many depredations
the
in your
mitigation-
county.
Do the mitigations work?
Depends on who you talk to.
Put a bunch of
Um,
flags.
But the mitigation might be actually, and this is something that came from the AOC conference in one of those side conversations with a gentleman from APHIS, and then also his supervisors at the state level. There is interest from APHIS in partnering with counties or even regions for providing staff to provide mitigation from an employee. And so our compensation funds that we're going to request, the mitigation dollars could help fund that staff. And then the federal side can match some of that to create an employee to help provide mitigation. So the mitigation isn't just on the producer. That's a
Would it,
Todd Nash and I have been
If-
having this
if-
big conversation and trying to figure out taking mitigation, because right now the state's just like, it's all on the producer. APHIS is saying, we believe it should be on us to help you with that. We're willing to provide staff. Let's work on getting some of that mitigation money that you can apply for and putting it towards
Doesn't
staff.
it-
So it's an ongoing thing that I'm
Isn't
going
it
to
the same
try to.
concept as predator control?
It's similar, but it would be a separate staff that's tasked to provide mitigation. Because when you then have Lee Foster, who's our acting biologist, go to a depredation, and in that area, we can say, we've done mitigation in this area. He can then say, I want a lethal kill. But if we haven't checked that mitigation box, he can't then go, this is how I'm gonna take care of it. And don't. But that's kind of where we're going with that, is so that we can.
Yeah.
Work towards that. It's a big picture thing. It's gonna take me some time to. Work on it, but. That's,
If you can get
that's
that fully
the
funded.
direction.
Awesome.
But the thing is, it's like,
Jeremy,
most of the counties have
Hold
not
on just a
applied
second.
for that.
got a question.
And so it's made it look like the compensation from the state level is sufficient, and like we've kept coming back to them and saying it's not sufficient because you don't even have all the counties even willing to apply for it because there's so little money to apply for.
How much? We're gonna need.
It's not very much that's required from the county. It's a couple thousand.
Status update on the .gov emails and roll into the webpage? Is that what you had?
Did you see the Tammy email about the March
Yeah, I haven't seen
13th
it,
thing?
no.
Okay, I was assuming you did. I was like. I
Yeah,
think-
I'd asked Brad about it. We had a meeting about Monday, my boss. So, it's not gonna be as involved because it's already within 365. So it's not like going from one platform to another. So there's no migration or anything like that. So,
That's even better.
yeah, so it'll be pretty seamless. It'll be, I think it's like a year that they kind of move forward the old ones to your new ones until people get comfortable sending it to the new one. That helps with billing and, people who have their email attached to 50 different things.
Yes,
So,
we do.
not by choice.
yeah, home health, they're really worried about that because they have some different things that they have.
Hmm.
But The website, I emailed her to get, status on that. Cause Deanna was inquiring about it today too.
And Patty
Well.
had already talked to Cindy
Oh, have you?
and set up a date.
Oh, I had told Cindy I would appreciate another meeting, Zoom meeting, whatever. I've been out of it for a while and we got
Well, I
Judge
think
Hardy.
everybody has it.
Yeah, she indicated, yeah, it's probably time. So we're looking at. And I'll put you on an
26th.
email, January 26th, noon to 2
Okay.
or
I-
shorter.
And if I have a list of people, I can send out an invite.
Yeah.
So, and so what's the date again, date then?
January 26th at noon.
Her
Okay.
availability was noon to 2, so if we want to
Okay.
do 1 to 2, we could do 1 to 2. If
Yeah,
we think
yeah,
it'd
I
only
mean-
take an hour.
So just have you guys, Deanna and maybe Ross.
We'd
That's
had
kind of who we've
Roxanne, Deanna and Dag, I think,
Dag,
were
okay.
kind of the major.
Yeah. Lindsay said
department.
she doesn't.
No, I mean, hers will be specific to what she wants
She
her
needs,
to
yeah,
develop
just like most of the
on her
departments,
page.
Yep.
All right, I don't have anything else. Anybody else? Anything?
Thank you.
Long meeting. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sticking around through lunch, Susan.
The big one.
So if there's nothing else, I will call this meeting adjourned at 1:12 PM.
Military people.
I know what I started to.
Once you get used to military time, it's just so much
Well, law
There's-
enforcement reinforced it over the years as well.
Well, initially I didn't like it. Now it's like, I prefer it.
Well, Jerry, time wasn't that hard to figure out.
And it takes
Whatever
the,
it is, mine's 12.